Let's explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
We were sleeping. I've been sleeping. I've been turning away from a truth I wanted not to face. There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us. We let it grow, and now it's here.
How many men have you killed, my lord?
I don't know.
50? 100? Countless.
Countless has a nice ring to it.
And how many lives have you saved?
500,000. Population of King's Landing. Tell me if your precious Randy commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, children burned alive, would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
Our time has come. We prepared. We grew stronger. While you rested in your cradle of power, you were trusted to lead the Republic. But you were deceived. You assumed no force could challenge you. And now, finally, we have returned.
The visions are clear now. I see possible futures all at once. Our enemies are all around us. And in so many futures they prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
It's not a prophecy. It's a story that you keep telling, but it's not their story, it's yours. They deserve to be led by one of their own. What your people did to this world is heartbreaking.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope!
We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. But they are the gatekeepers. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them.
I wish none of this had happened.
So do all live to see such time, but that is not for them to decide. All we will have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us.
Forgive me. I did not see. I have failed you all.
You will bring Jon.
I do not know what strength is like that. But I swear to you, I will not let the White City fall. Our people fail. Our people. Our people.
I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And now it begins.
No. Now it ends.
Hey guys, welcome to The Narrative, episode 57. Named this one the MAGA Mission. Totally normal night. There's nothing else going on. No cultural or newsworthy events, traditions, anything like that happening. Nothing that needs to be discussed. No context of any kind. Just a completely normal Sunday night. We just started an hour late. And my guest is already fucking it up because he was responsible for starting the stream. He had to press a certain button, and he cut off a bunch of my intros. So now it's just even more ruined than it could have been. And it was already pretty ruined. But, it's a depressing night, so I'm going to have on a depressing guest. But before we get that, I will say welcome to you guys. I saw a ton of Badlanders already in the chat, like an hour before the show started. So I can see so many So many Badlanders are still very much into the bread and circus. It seemed like a lot of people don't really even watch the Super Bowl anymore. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll play a little bit of Super Bowl grab ass. But we are brought to you tonight by a couple of our friends, longtime friends. And the first one is our friends at Manly Cans.
All right, we've had enough. For centuries, men have been discriminated against, overlooked, and just downright forgotten. On Valentine's Day, men have bought chocolate, flowers, cards, and presents for the lady in their life, while men have got neglected. Never fear, ladies. This Valentine's, show the man you love you haven't forgotten him with a gift from Manly Cans. Manly Cans are gift cans for men, featuring local products and reusable packaging, with nationwide shipping and local delivery. Give that special man in your life the perfect Valentine's gift from manlycans.com.
You know, it was always a thing in my household that it was impossible to get my dad presents because he would always seem like he was really excited about it, but he would never once use anything we got him. We would find the stuff we got him like still in its packaging years later. And I was like, man, I'm not going to be like that. Except then after becoming a husband and then a dad, and my wife asked me what I want, I never have an answer. But looking at the Manly Cans, that is stuff that guys will actually use. Like plenty of snacks in there, knives, things to play with. It's a pretty safe bet. So badlandsmedia.tv/manlycans. Your guy will actually use some stuff in there. He'll just pretend he's going to use the stuff that you spend a ton of money on, and he's not going to. We're also brought to you by Tamarack Gardens. Are you looking for a better alternative to the over-the-counter drugstore medications? Tamarack Garden began from a parent's desperate need to be safe and effective, to have safe and effective options for their kids. Tired of toxic chemicals, taking matters into their own hands, they began crafting medicine from weeds, wildflowers, and herbs, the original time-tested healers that modern medicine can't match. Packed with antiviral herbs to boost immunity and fight illness, Tamarack Garden has, for a limited time, the elderberry and rose hip syrup kit available. Not only is it delicious and easy to make, it will keep you and your family healthy all fall and winter. Introducing Tamarack Garden's new baby line, clean, non-toxic, gentle for newborns and moms, relieving cradle cap, diaper rash, stretch marks, and postpartum pain. Visit tamarackgarden.com today. Use the promo code BADLANDS for $10 off orders over $50. That's 20%. $10 off orders over $50. Badlands Media, tamarackgarden.com, promo code BADLANDS. And as I've said before, we not only use the Tamarack products in the Bright household, we have used them on our very small child, and he's doing pretty good. So anyway, without further ado, let's get this over with. I'm joined by Jon. How's it going, man?
Must be a rough night to be a Patriots fan, huh?
Well, yeah,
seems like Patriots were in control, full control of everything except for the line of scrimmage, time of possession, the football itself. They had a few turnovers.
There was like a couple of details that were missed, I think. I think Vrabel really focused on control. He controlled the clock, I would say.
No, they didn't. And here's the thing, I didn't even watch. I just checked the stat line before we went live. So
he punted very effectively. Those were some good punts. He used timeouts efficiently. I was saying, going into the second half, the boys will start scoring some points. We got to start scoring some points. You got to do that at some point in a football game, and
to win.
They just didn't do that part of it. But I think otherwise, they were in control. We could be looking at a devolution scenario where they were like, let's see what's going on here and see if the people are awake enough for a Drake May victory just in his second season. And now they're going to give it up to the Seahawks. They'll come back next year. They'll win next year. And it'll be Patriots in control.
That's your decode?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are going to talk about that. These are tangential to the Super Bowl, but it's actually works with our topics tonight. Obviously went an hour late. Partly, yes, it's because the Patriots were in the Super Bowl, but also partly because the Super Bowl is this giant thing, and I knew a lot of people were going to be watching it, despite the diehards that were already in the chat. So I figured we'll do maybe a slightly abridged version of the narrative, although it will...
I'd appreciate
it will
that.
scare Jon to know that there's no show after us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I can just tune out whenever. But But yeah, I just want to point out that had the Patriots won, you would have been more insufferable than normal. So I think we should all be a little grateful for that. Just felt like I'd point that out. But no, for real, I was like kind of like expecting myself to be excited to watch the game as the game approached. And the game happened, and me and my girlfriend, we've been watching the Paradise series, like the Underground Bunker one. And we were like on episode 5 or something. And I was like, no, I don't even care to watch the game. And so we just kept watching the series. Didn't watch. I turned it on like once we finished the series tonight. So once that got over with, I think it was like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And so we watched a little bit. Then you were like, hey, we're going live here. And so I maybe watched a total of 3 minutes of the game.
You probably saw all the important bits. You know, I'm not just saying this because the Patriots lost and we're losing the entire time, but it was kind of similar vibes around here where we were both talking about, you know, Mrs. Bright and I have been together through 4, right? How many? 3 Patriots Super Bowl wins and 4 appearances. This is the 5th appearance. And all of them before now, including the loss to Philadelphia, had so much buzz, not just nationwide, but like obviously for us, we were really into it. Mrs. Bright, when I lived in Toronto, she was a big Maple Leafs fan. I'm a Bruins fan. So we really had no team to root for. And she actually was a sports fan growing up. So she actually did like her teams instead of just pretending to like them. So we had like a rivalry in NHL, which you could, I mean, it's only supposed to be a rivalry if the other team ever wins. Boston kind of dominated that one. We don't really care about basketball, and neither of us cares that much about baseball. So I got her into football, and I got her into football right before the New England Seattle Super Bowl. I think it was one full season before that was the first one she watched the whole season. We lost to Denver. Brady lost to Denver in the AFC Championship. And then the next year, it was the Seattle Super Bowl win. And then, of course, the rest is history. Atlanta, the Rams, we were cheering for Brady when he went to Tampa. And compared to that, even before we knew we were going to lose this game, there was no buzz. I really don't think there's a lot of buzz locally and certainly nationally.
About the Patriots?
There was not much. Football? I think with the Patriots, there's not, I mean, people are happy to see them winning, you know, like it was a fun season, but I think even everybody in New England had a little bit of a fool's gold feeling about this team. Nobody wanted to say that, right? Because if they won, we'd be like, oh, they were going to win the whole time. But the whole national media was like, they had quite a nice path to get into
like
this
it was
game.
like all backup quarterbps or something.
Well, Denver was a backup. Yeah.
Today I did the bad gaming stream, and like take what you're in your imagination would be the worst possible gaming and make it worse than that, because I couldn't even get the game to download. So I did a whole premium stream called Bad Gaming where I didn't even play a video game because I couldn't get it to work. So that was the bad gaming stream. And I don't remember why I said that. But when I was talking to DJ, he was saying like, yeah, they played backup quarterbacks like the entire season. They didn't play a single hardly starting quarterback.
I mean, that's a lie. This is what happens when in the AFC Championship we played a backup quarterback. So then it became we played backups the entire season.
Who'd they play before
but
that?
it was an easy path. It was an easy season. But I did learn some trivia about that in the NFL, which was interesting. The Patriots had the easiest schedule in the regular season. That's a fact going into the season. But 2 different caveats to that. Number 1, when you have the easiest schedule, it's objectively because the previous season you were a bad team, right? Like,
I guess.
So they are projecting you to be a bad team. So they put you against bad teams and then you smoke them all. That's not really your fault. Second, I don't know what the statistic was. People can look it up. But the vast majority of Super Bowl winners had a top 5 easiest schedule.
Really?
Like going back in the modern century. So basically, it just shows you that a huge part of football is getting into the playoffs, being relatively healthy, and having easy opponents.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I didn't think... I mean, Seattle was the better team. They deserved to win, but that was a terrible performance all around.
It goes to show, too, the Vikings, how terrible their front office is by letting Sam Darnold go. Like, the stupidest... Yeah. So dumb. Did you watch any of the halftime stuff from either side of the controlled opposition?
I went and took a shower, and then I came down and I saw the last like 2 or 3 minutes of the like regular halftime show with Bad Bunny. Didn't know who that was. I had seen him mentioned on social media. There was a lot of decodes on social media.
Yeah.
So I saw some of that. And like InfoWar aside, if I was trying to look at this, like, what does a normie think right now? When I watched it, there was a bunch of Hispanics climbing like utility poles.
Utility poles?
Yeah, like electrical utility poles that they had as props in the center of the field. And then what looked to be kind of like poppy fields or marijuana fields, or probably maybe just farm fields. They had like erected like a corn maze
Avocado
type of
fields,
thing. Maybe it was avocado fields they were all dancing in. But to me, and the guy, I'm not even saying this because I think his music is bad. I don't know what his music is. I don't think he was playing music or singing when I turned it on. He seemed to just be ranting in Spanish. And I don't know if that's his version of rapping or if he was literally ranting about politics. Yeah. But it seemed like he was just ranting because he had all the flags of every country in South America and was doing a big
I don't
march.
even give a shit, man. It's so stupid. My mom did text and say that. She was like, what the hell? Why is the halftime of the Super Bowl not even in English? This is the worst ever. And she says, I think they are confused and think it's Cinco de Mayo Day. Not a word of English, she said. And that's just retarded. But whatever. We kind of expected that going into it.
Yeah.
And as me and Chris were talking last night, oh man, I don't even remember what the topic was about last night, but it applied to the Super Bowl and the halftime show. All the Con Inc. influencers are like, oh my gosh, guys, I can't believe, Bad Bunny. We need to protest and not watch the Super Bowl. And then everybody online is like, those same people are, hey, everybody, look at all these clips from the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, there's fucking clickbait whores everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. So
yeah, that's going to be part of what we're going to talk about tonight. John put a video out that I'm going to get to in a minute, but yeah, on the Super Bowl, I agree with that, and I didn't pay any attention to the controlled oppo dynamic one. I find that kind of like you said with Con Inc. I kind of find that more gross in some ways and more concerning because I think a lot of people are falling into it.
Yeah.
And if I'm trying to not be cynical and like understand, I get why. My point about turning that Super Bowl on or seeing glimpses of that halftime show is you can see how effective the controlled opposition dynamic is, because when you do just have a rambling, ranting Hispanic speaking Spanish with all the South American flags at the Super Bowl, where you started the game with like an Air Force flyover, you're going to have a higher percentage than normal of normal Americans that are like, what the fuck is going on, right?
Yeah.
And then on Monday, the water cooler talk, you're going to have somebody in every office in Normieville that's going to be talking about the other halftime show. And it just shows you there's a lot of people in the info war that think that's good, but people like us tend to think that's concerning because it shows like how easy it is to mollify a big portion of the MAGA base. Like put Kid Rock on a stage, put Erica Kirk out there, pretend it's the real Super Bowl halftime show, and I find the whole thing a little bit humiliating for everybody.
Yeah, I didn't pay any attention to that either. And TPUSA, we've been pretty much on message about them since before the midterms or before the last election or whatever. Their main focus is registering people for fake election. I know some people like what they do, like getting the kids involved and engaged at university. And I think that part of it is really good. Like, I think there needs to be some mechanism to reach those people. That's great. But then you get them on, so now let's use these people to solidify the fake election system, which that's where the controlled oppo dynamic comes in for me. And so that's what we're going to, and so I'm curious, like what their underlying message was, right? Like, so Bad Bunny, I'm assuming, having not watched, but I'm assuming it was a very anti-ICE, pro-immigration, pro-Spanish message.
Diversity is our strength.
Yeah. What was TPUSA's underlying
I didn't see it,
message?
but I did hear, not just from people in chat and just people online, but randomly, my family chat with my Canadian family, my wife's family, her brother was arguing with her parents because he was watching the TPUSA halftime show Now, this guy's not a Trump guy that I know of. I'm going to have to talk to him on the DL because maybe he is now. But he was texting and he opened up the family chat by saying, like, what the hell is this? This is the worst halftime show I've ever seen. And he said it's un-American. This is a Canadian saying, like, this is totally ridiculous. Now, of course, my in-laws, who said they were with 10 other old people, their words, not mine, they were like, well, everybody loved it here. It was a big hit, but it's because they're never Trumpers. They hate Trump. So anything that's anti-American, they like right now. But I thought it was really interesting that, you know, a 34-year-old Canadian, their son, who I would have said is a never Trump diehard, like that's what I would have said. He's at the point where he was mad in an American halftime show for being anti-American. And what did he do? He went right to TPUSA. I don't even know how he knew about it, but clearly that's the reach. Yeah. Like even up there, it must have got far enough. But the reaction from people who did watch it was overwhelmingly positive from what I've seen. I mean,
and that's good. Even some people in the chat are saying like it was very pro-American, which is, and that's great. Yeah. I love pro-American stuff. I don't view TPUSA as positively as a lot of people do, and that's my concern. Yeah. And also like when you're only being presented two options, like you get the one side, and the only other option is the TPUSA thing. You know how I don't like being told what to do, so obviously I'm not going to do that one thing. By the way, you shaved your beard. I just noticed.
And it was a journey. It was not easy.
What do you mean? Just
the winter scruff and the I think my trimmer is just awful, like some cheap trimmer, and it was ripping my face apart. So it took like 4 passes and then scissors and then
used scissors,
the razor. I used scissors.
Jeez.
So I didn't even think I had that much of a beard, but once I started going after it, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's definitely your trimmer, because that's ridiculous. But anyway,
we need to start selling trimmers so I can have one.
I think it's official that the Patriots lost. So suck it.
Patriots not in control right now, and that actually is a good segue into some of what we want to talk about, because we're talking about TPUSA. I agree with you. First of all, I do agree. If I want to say something positive about the dueling Super Bowls, the dueling halftimes, whether or not we're dealing with a controlled oppo thing, that's like a matter of opinion and vibe. It is true that maybe now more than ever, there seems to be a more mainstream acceptance of a true parallel US going on. Like there is, if you said 5 years ago that there was going to be a dueling halftime show for conservatives that would get millions of views, I don't think people would have believed it. They would have thought like, oh, I would watch it. You know, I'm a Rumble person. I would watch it. I'm a Badlander or whatever. I'm a Q person. But people are saying that, they're screenshotting like 7 million live and all kinds of shit.
Oh, wow.
That's on online platforms. I mean, that is truly indicative of, if that's true, unless they're talking about total views. But either way, tons and tons of people watching. If that's true, it is indicative of a true split in sort of mainstream entertainment and this other parallel economy, parallel culture, and now parallel entertainment that's basically going on at the same time rather than replacing it. Like I think a lot of people used to be like, oh, we're going to replace it. We're going to reform all this stuff. And now it's kind of like, maybe we're not going to reform this stuff. Maybe we're going to create just our own versions of all of these things and ignore the stuff we don't want.
Hey, capitalism, baby. You do what you got to do. And TPUSA, they have a huge network. They're coming off the heels of the Charlie Kirk assassination, where everybody's kind of looking at them right now, and they took advantage of it. And I see people in the chat like getting upset, like respectfully, why are, we only had 2 options, and why harp on TPUSA? Like it's my opinion of their organization. They are feeding into the fraudulent election system, and anybody who does that repeatedly, like I'm gonna look at them a little sideways. And we've been looking at TPUSA the same way well before the last election. So, I mean, why would I change my opinion of them just because they have a pro-American halftime show? I don't think registering voters for a fraudulent election system is a net win for anybody, and if anything, it keeps us in that system. But I just opted out. Like, you guys want to watch it? that's totally cool. I respect you guys' desire to do that and not want to watch the Mexican one. It's probably the lesser of two evils, right? I'd much rather people be watching a pro-American thing than the whatever the Bad Bunny was, but I just opted out. I didn't do any of it. I didn't engage in any of it, and I had a great day. I feel great.
And I think part of it too is that we use controlled opposition dynamic a lot, that framing, and it's important, I think, to consider that is what's happening in some of these situations, not just the Super Bowl, but I mean the existence of these networks, TPUSA, and they're not the only ones. But it's not like that's the underlying assumption or that's the automatic assumption that we're making. There's also well-meaning and earnest quote-unquote conservatives and MAGA people that we, as you said about election fraud, probably being like the easiest example to point to. There are earnest, well-meaning conservatives and MAGA people, entire swaths, probably the majority, that do not see eye to eye with us or many Badlanders about the foundations of the American governmental system, right? Yeah. So like, you don't even necessarily have to be talking about controlled opposition dynamic. You could just be saying, hey, your earnest traditional conservatism is also not where I want to go for the future, even if, to your point, it's the lesser of two evils. So that's part of it as well. It's like, you don't have to think TPUSA is controlled oppo to say, hey, we're not really into registering voters and, propping up members of Con Inc. As the new mainstream media.
Yeah, and also I think it's notable to point out, at least as of right now, Trump did put out a huge post about how shitty the halftime show was, but he didn't mention the TPUSA one, right? Yeah. He didn't feed into it, so why should we?
Yeah, and he obviously might at some point. I'll show people here.
He probably will, but like the best opportunity to do it would have been right now.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I thought that earlier as well. This was the Trump post.
Nobody's going to go back after the fact to watch the halftime show,
right?
In my opinion.
Yeah, anyway, I do think this is notable, because at the very least, to your point, it doesn't prove Trump didn't like the TPUSA halftime show, but that halftime show, I would say, to use a Chris Paul term, was trying to draft off of Trumpism and off of MAGA, right? It's clearly trying to associate itself as a MAGA event. And Trump is not necessarily associating himself with those events. And I think we saw a lot of that last year. But
real quick, before you even read this, did you see this week there was, I can't remember the guy's name. He's like the comedian with the long red hair. He did a video making fun of Erica Kirk and like how quick, there was
JP, is that his name?
Yeah, maybe JP Spears.
Awakening with JP, I think. That guy's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought he's hilarious. And there was this leaked Zoom call from right after Charlie Kirk died and right after his memorial, like 12 days later. And he was like making fun of him and saying what everybody's thinking, like, this is weird. Why? Like, her husband just died and she's like giggling on this Zoom call, talking about how much money they've made from her husband's assassination. And people shit all over him for it. Trying to like
JP Sears.
The Con Inc. sphere was shitting all over that, which is, I mean, the most funny things are the ones that are true. And it was true. Everything he said was true. And that's why it was funny. But they were like shitting all over him, calling him insensitive and like trying to defend TPUSA. And I felt like that is somehow almost connected to what we saw tonight. Like you can't go after TPUSA for like some clear, like it's weird. You're talking about merch sales 12 days after your husband died. Like, it's fucking weird. But anyway.
And no, I think that's good to bring up. I'll just show that Trump just said Super Bowl halftime show is absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. It makes no sense. He talked about nobody understands a word this guy's saying. Now, I understand Spanish. I'm like fluent auditorily in Spanish. And yeah.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. I understand Spanish. What?
Donde está el baño?
It's right over there, man. Right through that wall.
Nice. Okay.
That's the way to prove it, right? The things we learn when we're 7 years old. There's no way I could know that one phrase. No, I could not. I literally couldn't understand him. I was just like, I don't know if it's his dialect. I don't know if he's speaking Spanish or what the fuck is going on. But yeah, I don't even know if Spanish Americans could understand what that guy was saying. But to your point about, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Did you see like they were doing interviews of a bunch of the NFL players? Like, hey man, what's your favorite Bad Bunny song? There was like, I don't listen to Bad Bunny. I don't listen to Bad. The only person who responded was a freaking Vikings player, Aaron Jones. Like, of course you would.
I've never heard of him like at all.
Yeah, me neither.
But your Eric Kirk point, I guess we're gonna get everybody mad at us right away, but
might as well.
Yeah, it's okay to have pointed out, which we did when it happened, to be uncomfortable with how that whole narrative op was unfolding in the immediate wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. I had said this in our group football chat earlier tonight. That wasn't my joke when I said, let's get ready to grieve. I had seen... So on normie liberal Twitter, which I often reference, like in my other job, I just see idiots, like the worst of the worst, hate everything we stand for. And I will admit, in the aftermath of Kirk, there were some memes. They didn't do Kirk memes, because I think they knew, like, you can't do that. But they did do Erica Kirk memes.
Yeah.
And we always talk about the left can't meme. Well, they can meme Con Inc. Because, and I think that should actually be a low-key big signal, right?
Yeah.
And the meme I had seen at the time was basically like, oh, my husband just died, and it's like a NASCAR like bursting through a wall with fireworks going off and like spins into a parking spot, and the meme was just saying like, let's get ready to grieve. And we were talking about this at the time, like, hey, you can be cool with it or whatever, like the fact that a widow was coming out to fireworks and doing like a nationwide tour. You can even have sympathy for Erica Kirk if you want to be one of those people and still think it's gross that maybe somebody's putting her up to this kind of thing, right? And like using her as this prop. But yeah, it's okay to think that kind of stuff. But, to your point, I think what we push back on, it's not just contrarianism, but 10 years ago, I remember being a former liberal and first getting into kind of MAGA world. And so much of the commentary at the time in MAGA was about the cultural piety and puritanism that had become of leftism, which was true, right? Like you couldn't joke about race, you couldn't joke about sexuality, you couldn't joke about anything, right? Everything was politically incorrect in the age of Trump. And conservatives all of a sudden found out that they could joke. And now, starting maybe with Charlie Kirk, but now even the Super Bowl, we can't criticize a Turning Point USA Super Bowl, and it now makes us un-American. This is the shit that I was saying last week, gives a former liberal flashbacks to the 2001 era when I'd be like, 9/11 was bad. We all agree, right? Like, yeah, 9/11 was bad. And then the liberal in the room will be like, should we not invade two countries that had nothing to do with it? And you'd just be like flamed by every Republican inside of like, do you not like America, boy? And it's kind of, if you find yourself doing that, I don't know, it might not be us. If you're like, you don't like Kid Rock. Like, no, I've never liked Kid Rock. I'm sorry.
Not to pick on anybody in the chat, but I'm going to because she is very angry with us right now. Artsy Jones says, if it was on PBS as an American Patriot alternative, I'd watch it. It's because it's TPS you find fault. That's not right. And she goes on to say, don't assume we buy into the TPUSA propaganda BS as the reason we watched. You're literally sitting here defending TPUSA with us criticizing TPUSA. Like, it's great they did a pro-American halftime show. Like, cool. Yeah. I said I'm a lesser two evils. I don't care if anybody watched it. I'm just giving my opinion on the matter, and you're sitting here upset over my opinion on it. We don't have to agree, Artsy. I think you need to take a drink of water, calm down a little bit, and we'll probably never see her again because she's gonna be mad now. But
that's okay.
That's kind of my point, though. Like, we're not allowed to talk about it because they did pro-American stuff. Like, there are plenty of people who do pro-American stuff who end up to be total traitors and try to take you down a path that ultimately will defend the system. That is how the controlled opposition dynamic works. That's why it works. That's how it exists in the first place. That's by design. So the only way to not fall for that is to completely opt out of all of it. It wouldn't have mattered who did it. I wasn't going to watch any halftime show. The whole thing is a bread and circus. That's the point.
Yeah, I mean, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become as toxic as G Money, I think.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the pathway we're all on, but you can understand why. And I said this on a show, maybe it was Wednesday night with you, but I've said it a few times recently. What you just said there, it reminds me of, Chris and I just did Troy on Story Hour last Tuesday night, but it's ubiquitous in human analogies, the Trojan horse. The Trojan horse only works when you let it in the gate. The reason you let the Trojan horse in the gate is because the Trojan horse is dressed up and stylized to look like a gift to the Trojan people. So the Trojan people think that's something that looks like ours, it seems like ours, and it's being offered to us seemingly in good faith. Well, of course we should accept it. And it's the age-old rug pull type of thing. It's the age-old expression of the controlled opposition dynamic. This is nothing new. You didn't need modern propaganda to figure out that pretending to be like somebody else gives you certain advantages over that person or that group of people. Like, this is the oldest thing that everybody claiming to be an InfoWar person should understand, right? Like, on some level, not being a MAGA conservative, just if you're in the InfoWar, if you think there's an InfoWar, if you're a conspiracy theorist, if you're a Q follower, by definition, you literally had to have believed that everybody else was lying to you to get here in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get here without thinking that even the conservative media is lying to you. And to kind of kickstart where we were going to go tonight, this is a perfect on-ramp to it. There is a concerning amount, I think we've talked about, Chris talks about, a lot of people at Badlands talk about and take a lot of heat for. There's a concerning degree of media worship going on in not just MAGA, but the truth community lately. Specifically, I think Fox News is the easiest example. Yeah. But TPUSA and Con Inc., mileage varies on who you want to assign Con Inc. to. That's up to you guys. Who do you trust? Who do you not trust? But the idea that I think it's okay to watch Fox News and see what they're saying. I think it's important to. We track all these different media apparatus. But now Jesse Waters is in on the plan because he said 17 on a broadcast. Like, that is, to me, a concerning leap that a lot of truth community people are now taking, to where if you just play the devil's advocate game, if I'm sitting in like a deep state think tank and going, all right, how do we convince these extremely intelligent InfoWar people that we are the ones they should be following going forward? They've rejected the media. They follow the Q drops. They follow Donald Trump. He calls us fake news. How do we get them back on board? And the one guy in the room is like, literally, all you have to do is say 17. Like, and I always say this, I'm a Q person. I feel like I'm always defensive about it.
I know.
I've followed the drops. But this is why I've had to become this way, where I'm like, guys, it should not be that easy to say. It's like the meme with Steve Buscemi, hello, fellow kids, right? Hello, fellow QAnons. I, too, use the word 17 at times. And Jesse knows. So anyway, open it up to you. But you had some commentary this week about the media, and I think part of it was prompted by some of those trends we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, those trends have been going on for a while. Like, even around the Super Bowl, like some of the decodes I was seeing were ridiculous, which it's funny too, because last year I specifically remember it was the day after the Super Bowl. I think I had Chris on my daily show, and we talked about some things. I don't even remember what specifically we talked about, but everybody was like losing their minds decoding last year's halftime show. Who was it that did it last year again? The rapper guy? I know that really narrows it down.
Kendrick Lamar,
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is we're in Patriots in full control. This
that was a decode, right?
Everything was decoded. But then this year, it's like there's no decodes for this one. This one was not a full control halftime show. But like I was told there's going to be EBS warnings going off at halftime.
Yeah.
Like, didn't see any of that. Like, just some of the stuff that's being thrown at the wall is ridiculous. But this week on my show, I was complaining, as I the chat like you normally do. again about the media thing. And I've been on this for a while now, like since Trump's first administration started, and Carolyn Levitt's like, oh, we're gonna do the whole new media thing. I was like, okay, well, we'll put our email in and see if we can
Second
get a
administration, you meant.
whatever this is.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get a White House press pass. But the whole time I was like, they're not going to do it. This isn't going to be, they're grifting here, guys. They're not going to actually do anything different. People are like, oh, just be patient, Jon. Like, take your time. Like, obviously they just started. Give them at least a year or so, whatever. And of course, the new media was all the Tim Pools and the faggots that we point to. Like, yeah, that's conning. Those guys are not on our side, right?
Who wouldn't talk about election fraud?
Yep, stayed on the major platforms, all that stuff. And I know
Wouldn't
this does
talk
come
about
off,
the drops or anything either.
Yeah, I know this comes off as complaining, but like this is how you get a point across. The media, as Trump has been saying, and we've been echoing the sentiment of, they're the enemy of the people. The mainstream media is the enemy of the people, and yet I've been saying that's great, but at any point, Trump, if he wanted to change that, he could. He could be the one that's like that shits all over the media, steps on their throat essentially, and they become irrelevant whenever he decides that he wants that to happen. And then I was bitching about that again this week. Is like at some point here, Trump has got to like do that, because you can't sit here and let the fake news run all these bullshit stories all the time, keep us in these psyops all the time, without eventually like moving to the next step here. Okay, maybe we'll actually start bringing some new media in here to try to do something different. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do a post. I want an interview. I want to go on there and ask all the questions that people actually want to hear answers to, instead of like, how do you feel about the economy, Trump? Like all the softball stuff. And then you have the liberals that are doing the disingenuous bullshit. We're never actually getting any movement on any issue, because we're all just asking the questions within the controlled opposition dynamic. And so I did a video. I was like, I want the opportunity to interview you. I know I'm probably never going to get it, but if you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, that's what Michael Scott told me that Wayne Gretzky said. And so that's why I put that out there. And the very next day, Trump put a True Social post out that's like, we need new media. The fake news sucks. So I was like, okay, if you want to talk about comms, where's my QD codes over that?
Right. No, that's not how it works. And we feel gross doing that kind of stuff. So we typically don't. But yeah, I'll show people the back. We'll play this. It's a minute long here.
It's a little
By the
gay.
Way,
I felt gay saying it. I felt gay putting it out.
It is. But I think that it's gay in terms of like, we feel awkward doing stuff like that.
Oh, dude,
but I think that there's
I had that thing recorded on Wednesday, and I don't think I posted it till Friday or like I sat on that thing for a while because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But then I felt like I had to.
Well, I also think there's an expectation game here where like we're not really expecting this to go anywhere. No. But I think that the deployment is important. It's not groveling and saying like, give me this, give me that. I think the intention here is, hey, we talk about mandate cultivation, which is one of the major kind of topics I want to get to tonight, but this is part of it where we're saying, okay, I think what you did here is, it was almost shocking in its normalcy, but the kind of stuff the general we in the truth community, a lot of people make that truth community up, don't really do this kind of thing, where, including us, I think we're so used to, whether you want to call it decoding or researching or commentating, a lot of people in this audience are first principles thinkers. We try to get ahead of where things are going. Yeah. We follow Trump comms. We follow, whether you follow the Q drops or you follow media comms, try to get ahead of it and everything. But I think something we do kind of forget to do, because so many of us, whether you're a Q person or a devolution person or whatever you are, so many of us are here because we believe that there is some framework of a plan by Donald Trump that exists beyond normal politics, right? Yep. It's not just a political movement. It's not just a cultural movement. We think that there is literally, on some level, military, informational, psychological, fifth generation campaign going on. And, some of us think it's global. So we think something big's going on here. And I think because, ironically, we do trust Donald Trump and that there is something bigger going on, we do often in this community forget that we can be an active part of the conversation. Yeah. And I think a lot of people in Q world in particular, and in truther world, not MAGA, not normie MAGA, but in truth community world, they're afraid to demand things of Donald Trump and patriots because they think there's a larger plan going on. And I think that's what's good to try to talk about the angle here. You can put a video like this out, not just in spite of a plan going on, but because you think there's a plan going on.
Oh, yeah.
And saying like, hey, well, maybe they're waiting for people to do this kind of stuff, right? Besides the fact that we have a right to do this shit as Americans and advocate for ourselves, I think it's also, you know, we got to start playing with the idea, have things not gone as far as some of us would like in certain theaters, because the truth community is not willing to push for those things to happen. I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's at least worth considering.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, we talk about like taking control and being active in the plan, right? Like we have to be part of the plan. And I'm sick of just sitting here waiting around. Like I want to front run some of this shit. I'm an impatient guy. I'm the kind of guy who, like, if I see something that I want to get done, I'm going to do it myself, and I'm not going to wait around for something to be given to me or done for me. And that's kind of like also what was behind this video is I'm going to like, why not try? Why not try and see what happens? I even got a Devin Nunes like on it, which was cool.
Yeah, a stealth like. We see you, Devin.
Yeah. President Trump, this is my public request for an interview. Americans feel like we don't have a voice. We feel forgotten. We feel manipulated. We feel lied to. When Carolyn Levitt told us that there would be new media at the White House, I was hoping things would be different. But nothing's actually changed. The new media is just more of the same. These people don't actually represent us, and none of them are asking the questions that we actually want to see answered. The professional propagandists and social media influencers are the reason behind the division in this country, and we are frankly sick of it. You've repeatedly called the mainstream media the enemy of the people, and yet you and your team continue to give them exclusive access, and they in turn use that to undermine you at every opportunity. And that's why I'm making this video. I am humbly requesting the opportunity to interview you. No agenda, no bullshit, nothing slanted by foreign or corporate interests, just one interview, in person, unscripted, unedited, for the people who feel unheard. Thank you for your attention in this matter.
Now, I would add a caveat that I think when Trump accepts this interview, he should have to also be in chat, in Badlands chat.
In the chat?
At the same time.
In the live chat?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know he'd
tough.
be trolling in there. He'd be trolling everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we had a day later, or a few hours later, right? When did you post this? Posted this on February 7th, 12:15 a.m. my time. 9 hours later, Donald Trump posts the following. We need more competition against the enemy, the fake news national TV networks. Letting good deals get done like Nexstar, Tegna will help knock out the fake news because there will be more competition and at a higher and more sophisticated level. Those that are opposed don't fully understand how good the concept of this deal is for them, but they will in the future get that deal done. President DJT. So obviously he's talking about a specific broadcasting deal here and competition, but enemy of the people. It's right there, right? Not only is he talking about it still, one of the things I've said, obviously I do the narrative show, and something that has strikes me with the benefit of hindsight is that for all the talk that we've done for years about the info war, about, you know, your writing about literal devolution operations, etc., and now we're talking about military operations, the first enemy that the first enemy that Trump publicly declared was the news media. And I think that, you know, Chris Paul just put something out tonight, and you should check out his Substack, Chicken Egg Chicken.
I haven't even read that yet.
I haven't read it yet, but I know, you know, we know the general concept of it.
Yeah, we've been talking about it.
And it's exactly, you know, I think people maybe look at, okay, Trump called out the news, the fake news initially because maybe he thought it was the easiest to topple. That's not how I see these things. I'm biased as a storyteller, but I think Trump targeted the news media first because it was the most powerful enemy in terms of the American people anyway. They don't have to be dropping bombs, but everything starts there, everything ends there. So I think that there's a reason he started the info war by targeting them when he came down the escalator.
Yeah, and you know, it's a real issue because even like that's who we go to for our news. Like, we go to the mainstream media to get news, to decipher, to try to figure out what's really going on. It's really difficult to actually like bypass the mainstream media, even though we've tried our best. But like, the issue with the truth community right now that I see is like everybody repeats that slogan, like, you know, the mainstream media is the enemy of the people. We are the news now. But then how many people are sitting here like groveling at the media still? Nobody's actually trying to do anything to bypass them. And to a degree, that's even us. Like, we do our best, but we're still struggling. But this was my chance and my appeal to kind of like here, let me intercede. Let me try to do something to actually get front and center, instead of like, I'm seeing truthers, people we used to associate with, and decoders who are like, with the Epstein drops, they're yelling at the media, be like, why aren't you guys in the media covering Rachel Chandler? Like,
oh, they're covering Donald Trump and Steve Bannon and Howard Lutnick and Elon Musk.
Yeah, but like, you're sitting here yelling at the mainstream media. Like, why do you care what the mainstream media talks about? I thought they were our enemy, but now you're here like, do your jobs, be media. Like, no, like that's not what we are the news now means. Nobody, I think, really is embodying what that actually means.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the funny thing about us reacting to or following the mainstream media is that the difference in this audience and in this whole world is that it's almost like if you imagine being one of the literal decoders from World War II, that people in the info war see all media communications, or should see all media communications, as enemy transmissions that are being intercepted. And enemy transmissions that are in code, right? That's the whole idea of where code talking came from and decoding originally came from. Ciphers, all the rest of it, because all the different factions in these wars, especially with electronic communication systems, knew that there was at least some possibility that enemy factions would intercept their communications. So then they started speaking in code. So we think that Trump and Patriots do this. Many who follow the Q drops believe, as the Q drops lay out specifically, that is what those are, is code basically coming from the quote unquote white hats. But we all understand that that's what the enemy news is. So that, I think that's all we're trying to say, right? It's not that there's no value in engaging with quote unquote enemy communications. It's that I think, to your point, people have gone from dissecting enemy communications as a mindset to, why isn't the enemy telling us the truth now? Yeah. And it's like, is that where you thought this was going? And again, this is probably a small minority of people that are like this, but a lot of normies are like this. Like, did you think that, if you're a truther, did you think this ended with CNN telling you what was going on? Because that's not how I ever interpreted enemy of the people. You know, we have to go around them like nobody's gone around them before, which was a direct quote out of the Q drops. To me, that wasn't, well, we got to go around them for a little while. And then eventually the plan is that, you know, we all go back to watching Fox News and reading Politico again. Just reading them as unironic.
Yeah, I'm just reading some of the chat. It's weird, man. It's just a weird spot. I think a lot of people going into this second Trump administration, or third Trump, or however you want to look at it, had a certain level of expectations. And some people don't want to, offer any criticisms at all. Some people only want to offer criticisms. Everybody's kind of trying to figure out their bearing, and it's, people are kind of sliding into whatever category they're in. And some people are just literally trying to figure it out and figure out a way forward, right? I feel like that's where we try to fit in, right? Like we try to be that highly frictional group of people that isn't afraid to just say at all times what they believe to be the truth, whether that's popular or not. Like, we don't give a shit. If you guys don't like what we're saying, that's fine. Eventually you guys will probably realize, oh yeah, maybe they were right. That's like how it's happened every single time. Many times. But with the media, it's just been so weird to see the transition. Because like at first everybody's like, here we go, new media, everything's going to be different now. And now it's like people are using the old media to reinforce their decodes and beliefs, to like show people they're right about things, even though like that's bullshit. It's such a weird time to be in the social media sphere, in media generally. Mm-hmm. Like it's all just so weird, and it's hard to watch. Social media is disgusting. Twitter, the clickbait over there, disgusting, censored everywhere. Like, I don't know.
We were talking about at Badlands. I mean, there was, just as one example, I'm not going to say who because there were many people doing this, but there was a Twitter post that, Jordan Sather was going after a lot of them because that's one of the things he likes doing, but from the Epstein files. Now, again, this is an example of where these are real Epstein files, right? Technically speaking, these are real Epstein files. This is why I wrote an article over the last few days called The Honeypot Hoax, to try to get people to look at this as a different kind of hoax. You and Chris have been talking about this for months. But basically that people think that the word hoax means fake, right? It's like, that's just, which, yes, okay, it means that. But there's a lot of different types of hoaxes, just like we're talking about with the controlled opposition dynamic. Was the Trojan horse fake? No, it was real. It was a real, massive sculpture of a Trojan horse that was ornate, it was decorated, it was full of gold and jewels and all this kind of stuff. That was real. It was a real gift. It also had a bunch of assassins in it that unlocked the gate and led to the sacking of Troy, right? So when it comes to the Epstein narrative, there was a Sather post the other day where somebody got, last I looked at it, 3 or 4 million views on a tweet that was a screenshot of an Epstein email that was talking about Joe Biden clones and body doubles. And the implication was obviously, oh my God, this is crazy. Look at what they're disclosing in the Epstein files, until Jordan said, this is an anonymous email, a random tip line email that the FBI has to log that is clearly, first of all, the sort of nice reading is that it's a confused person who's sending in a tip, right? The not so nice way of reading those emails, first of all, I think it was 2019 as well, where most of these emails started coming in. So this is after the Epstein narrative blew up in the public mind. You can very easily, and I would say logically, look at all of those emails as purposefully injected poison pills into whatever the Epstein op really was, right? There was something going on there. We all have different ideas of what it was. But all of those emails that come in naming Elon Musk and Donald Trump and rituals on boats and Joe Biden clones, all of these things that the media has been saying you believe in Q world and in truth community world came in post-2019, and who is signal boosting that shit? Qfluencers. Until somebody at Badlands calls them out and says that's actually fake, that's not a real thing, and then they immediately backpedal, which they do all the time. But this is why when people are like, why do you care what other people are posting? It's like, oh, I don't know. Because if you did care what was in the Epstein files, or if you did think that there was a there that maybe we actually would like to know about, are we more or less likely to get there as the truth community? Is Trump more or less likely to be able to cut through the noise to the American people and tell you what really happened with the Epstein operation, as far as he knows it, with all of those comms and amplifications or without them? And that's why I think, whatever you think of these different operations and these different theories, I think that us challenging the truth community and the Q world in particular is not combating Trump's plan. I think that there's a lot of times Trump and patriots are probably sitting there like, holy shit, look at what they're saying now. Like, how the fuck are we supposed to navigate this now when the number one trending thing from the Epstein files is Joe Biden clones?
Yeah. And here's the thing, guys, like none of us know what the plan is. And we've had this discussion so many times. I feel repetitive and a little retarded even having to say this, but none of us actually know what the plan is. People try to decipher it, figure it out, whatever. But regardless of any of that, if the plan isn't the truth and representing the truth, then I don't even know if I want whatever the plan is. Like, I'm going to still do the things that I think are true. And if us like going to somebody and criticizing what they're doing because they're clearly lying and like doing something disingenuously for clickbaits, like 4 million posts or 4 million views or whatever on a post that said Joe Biden was a clone and dead, when if you looked up the actual email, which they did to get the screenshot, you would see that it was just the ramblings of a schizophrenic who sent an email into the tip line, which there are a lot of those out there. I spent like the last week just debunking bullshit on the Epstein files, and it felt so weird. And people are accusing you of defending a pedophile or whatever. Like, I'm not attacking any individual person. I'm just going after what's the truth as far as, and that I know is the truth. That does not mean in any way that Joe Biden's, dead. Maybe he is all those things, but it's not because that email is telling you. That's the thing. And so like, that's where it's why another reason this is awkward. It's like when you're trying to operate as close to the truth as possible. And I know a lot of people don't think that about us. A lot of people, when I posted that video asking for a Trump interview, a lot of the haters came out of the woodwork and
you're a grifter.
Stuff like, oh, how dare you interview POTUS, you better not accept this. Just look at the legal situation in Arizona. I'm like, that is the most absurdly retarded take. Trump himself got accused of raping E. Jean Carroll and even got found guilty of it to a degree in that court. And we're going to sit here and be like, just because somebody filed a lawsuit in Arizona means there's any truth to it whatsoever. No, that's bullshit. Like, so whatever. I don't care that people have their thoughts and opinions of me, even if it's based on bullshit. But we do our best to operate towards the truth. And a lot of times that puts us in a negative light with other people. And I don't understand that. Like, I thought the whole mission here in the truth community was to pursue truth. And yet we always come back to defending things that, that are lies or not true, or defending the media, the enemy of the people, who are clearly lying to us all the time and clearly holding us back. Like, at what point do we want to try moving forward and advancing out of this?
Yeah, and it's to me, I thought of an analogy with the email situation and people that were going after you for correcting the some of these might have been earnest mistakes, right? But I mean by decoders and truthers.
Bricks News and the ball one, like that was easily disputable, and they doubled down.
Yeah, I know. I know. I mean, I'm trying to play devil's advocate, but if I want to make an analogy in terms of why is this bad, why are we not opposing Trump, etc. If somebody you loved was murdered and you're going to trial, right? Like, you know who did it and you know how they did it. And you've got an attorney. You're like, okay, one of my family members was killed. I've got this attorney. We're going to get justice. And you go into the courtroom and you get justice. And your attorney gets up there and he's like, so, Your Honor, so what happened was these 5 guys came into the house wielding spatulas. And, they beat my dad to death with spatula. Whatever it was. Some crazy, ridiculous thing. And there was a Rottweiler. And then this happened. And we found blood at the scene here. And you're sitting there having consulted with this attorney for the last 6 months, and none of that is true. You know that the defendant is the murderer, and you think you know how they did it. And your attorney goes in there and starts saying all this crazy shit, ostensibly to get the defendant, right? To get the murderer. Is that helping you? Or hurting you from getting the murderer? Like, this is sometimes how I feel in the truth community, where it's like, that is a very simple, and if you feel insulted that I made an analogy like that, good. It probably means the analogy is not necessary for you. But if you didn't understand it, you're the problem. And if you're in the truth community being like, I don't understand why saying immediately verifiably false things about the Epstein files to millions of people on the internet is bad for Trump and for the awakening.
For truth. Yeah.
Then I don't know how to help you, right? So when people like Jon and people like Jordan Sather are out there saying that's not true, they're immediately called out by the truth community for being a doomer and standing against the truth when they are the only ones that are actually trying to figure out what the truth is, who are people who are actually trying to figure out what's going on, instead of just decoding and getting attention. And unfortunately, as probably Chris Paul talks about the most, it is true that our social media zeitgeist that we all operate on, and a lot of us found each other through, there's good and bad to this stuff, it operates on this algorithmic incentive structure that is heavily amplifying and rewarding all of the worst type of stuff.
Yeah, I've said before, the monetization of Twitter is a bug, not a feature, and I mean it, and it's so true. Like the way it works, it's gross. I got called pedophile defender because I pointed out that somebody was clearly lying about what they posted. Like, it's bullshit like that. That's just, I don't know. It's just disgusting, man. But yeah, I mean, what is our goal here? Do we want to, another thing I was going to bring up. Weird this week how Bill Maher and some of these other people are all of a sudden like, I guess Q was right. What do you think that is about? I honestly haven't even thought it through yet, but maybe we can figure it out right now.
Yeah, I do want to talk about this. And actually, I wanted to bring up a comment, and I'm not calling these people are adults, so if they're being called out, that's fine. But somebody, Mustard Tiger, in the chat I saw earlier, and I remembered your comment. I've seen you watch the shows and appreciate it and everything. Said something to the effect of, Fox News has been dropping QComs like crazy. Now,
why do we think
related
that?
To what?
Like, why do we think that though? Like, why?
Well, here's where I would take that. I would actually agree with that and say, or let me agree with it as a devil's advocate. When we are saying these people are not dropping comms, or you should stop decoding Fox News, I'm not claiming that Fox News is not dropping Q comms. This is something Chris Paul talks about. If the Q drops, we all acknowledge, are the most widespread, one of the most infamous anonymous information dissemination programs of all time.
That's most effective too. Most effective by far.
Absolutely. And John's written about that in the Devolution series for everybody that still calls him anti-Q. He has not only endorsed it, but said he thinks it runs right in parallel with the Devolution.
I've supported more Q shows and Q content than probably anybody else, arguably anybody else online.
That's financially, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many people discovered John through a Q show. X22. Yep. So, shout out to X22. He's always putting people on there. But my point is, and Chris makes this point a lot, if they're white hats in control and Fox is part of the plan, would they be dropping Q comms? Yeah, probably. Okay, so there's your little proof right there. If they were still your enemy, and their entire brand cultivation strategy in an era in which all of us would acknowledge that the media apparatus as a whole is hemorrhaging support. The mainstream media is hemorrhaging support. That's a good thing. Fox News, comparatively, is doing much better than the rest of the traditional media apparatus. Why are they doing much better? Some would say it's because they're telling you the truth and they're the good guys. Others would say it's because they know who their audience is and they figured out that if you just say good things about MAGA, except for election fraud, etc., and if you throw occasional comms in there, tens of millions. The Q community is big. Massive.
Yeah.
It is massive.
Do you think it's
I think
I want to come back.
Yeah.
You keep going. I want to come back to a question in a minute.
Yeah, to finish that point, I would just say the Q community, which I have considered myself a part of, is so much larger than Q followers believe it is, to the point where something I get sick of is Q people acting like they are the small dogs on the internet when it is one of the most engaged with narratives of the last decade.
What do you mean by that?
And
small dogs?
What?
What do you mean by that? Like by engaging like small
they have
dogs?
Small dogs. I don't know if that's like a nationwide thing, but
I've heard of it.
small dog syndrome.
I've heard of it. I just don't know if I.
So the way I would frame that is, I mean, we all know what small dog syndrome is, but I think a lot of Q people have small dog syndrome in that they think they've been ignored, etc. They don't get any attention. Nobody takes it seriously. Meanwhile, like the most viral commentary on X is Q commentary.
Sometimes,
so that's my point. I'm not saying it always was that, by the way. I think it grew into that.
By that definition, I feel like we have small dog syndrome too, though, to
that's
a
fair.
degree.
Yeah. But my point is that people are saying Fox News is dropping Q comms. Okay, let's say they are. That doesn't mean they're the good guys. And this is what Chris always says. If the enemy is trying to look like you, and they figure out that if they say a magic word or a number or put a Punisher pin on, then that means that they're one of the good guys, right? And they get all these retweets and they get all this virality in the info war. And then another point would be Donald Trump, this is a point you make a lot, Donald Trump engaging with these shows, right? And going on these shows. That means that Trump is endorsing all these people as secret white hats. Like Trump goes where, now maybe he shouldn't, to your point, but historically in the last decade, Trump goes where the people are. If Trump knows where the people are, that's where he's going to get his message across. So I would just respond to that comment and say, even if Fox News is dropping Q comms knowingly, that still does not mean they're your friend, because literally anybody can drop Q comms and pretend to be a Q person. It's the easiest thing in the world to do online, and you will pretty much immediately get a following if you do that.
Yeah. Man, there's a lot there I want to respond to. I think I'm going to start with this one first, and then come back to the Q question I have. Trump goes where the people are. I think to a small degree that's true, but I think Trump takes the people wherever he goes. I think that's a little more accurate, because Trump is the lightning rod, like as Chris Paul would say, like whatever side Trump takes on an issue, it's usually one of the more controversial sides, and it just draws everybody in. And then later on, he'll go to the complete opposite side, and they'll just draw everybody in there. And then by the time that issue is resolved, Trump took both sides, didn't matter which one, and the people settled on something in the middle. When Trump goes on CNN, like his supporters that are going to follow and watch everything he does, and the social media people, they're going to clip out everything he says. They're going to do that whether it's on CNN or anywhere else. Like they're going to follow him wherever he goes. And the people that religiously watch CNN because of who CNN is and what they say and what they represent, Trump is not going to go there and change any minds. He's going to be portrayed as the person they've always thought he was, because that's how he portrays himself, as this caricature. And some people interpret that one way, some people interpret it another way. Like, right. I don't think it matters where Trump goes, which is why I think when it upsets me that like he keeps going back to these people and he's breathing life into them, in my opinion, when he does that, when he doesn't need to be. That was the whole point behind that video. Trump doesn't need to be doing this. He's telling us that these people are the fake news, the enemy of the people, and he's the one keeping them at the front and center. They're the ones that always get the exclusive access, and they're the ones that use that in turn against him at every opportunity. And we wonder why the divisions in this country are so high. Like bro, it's because you're doing it. Now, he could be doing it for whatever game theory reasons. We could game theory it out all day long and maybe not know the real answer. And maybe there's part of the plan reasons for it. I don't know that though, but pointing it out that it's true doesn't make me the bad guy, right? Like I'm just pointing it out. That is true. That is what he does. And Trump said that himself here, saying that the enemy of the people, we need more competition. Like you are the one, probably the only person in the world with the ability to literally create their competition overnight by just not having them and having other people in. And yet here we are. So that's why I think it's such an interesting dynamic of these guys being the enemy of the people, him being the lightning rod that he is, and the kingmaker, because that's essentially what he is. And it's up to him. Like some of the problems that he presents as problems, he's the one with all the ability and control to fix. Like our elections. You know, he sits here and repeatedly calls them fake forever and ever and ever. And it's like, bro, you're the guy. You could fix that. That you could expose and fix that right now. Like there's so many issues like that he's the answer to. He is the answer to the problem he's presenting if you want it to be. But clearly there's something else. And maybe it's because he wants us to help be part of that answer. That's what we fall to quite a bit.
Yep. Well, and that sets me up perfectly, because
You're welcome.
One of the words of 2024 that I used with frequency and that Trump used with frequency was mandate, right?
Yeah,
Trump kept calling it a mandate election. You and Chris often talk about that feedback loop. The wording I've always used with that is mandate cultivation. So the funny thing is, if you want to go bicameral with what you just said in our stance about advocating for, truth no matter what. And by the way, I'm not naive enough to believe that we know what the truth is. When I say that, I'm saying we're trying to figure out what the truth is instead of lying on behalf of powerful strangers, to use a Chris Paul quote. But either way you go with what you just said, let's say that Trump and patriots are not doing what we want them to do, right? They're not reforming elections, and I mean on a longer timeline even than now.
Yeah.
Then what would the appropriate response be from the truth community if they don't do what you wanted them to do? What would the appropriate response be? At the very least, to advocate that they do the things you wanted them to do, right? Like, even Q people can understand that. If it's like, hey, if the drops laid out this plan and then the plan doesn't happen, then you should advocate for it to happen in the way you wanted it to happen by its core tenets. Now, that's more of the black-pilled viewing of it. But still, the response would be advocate and push forward for the change that you want, to be as cliche as possible. The other way of looking at it is, like I said earlier in the show, we are people that have, made partial livings on this stuff by writing about there being plans and analyzing these plans in various ways. Devolution, Q, 5th gen warfare, all the rest of it. Cultural, narrative, kinetic, political. If you believe that that is true, and you do believe that Donald Trump operates, to your point, in the media space with a certain intent, then not only is it not dooming for us to challenge him on these topics and put out videos like the one you did the other day, that's just one example, but to keep talking about election fraud and not shut up about it, especially people like you and Chris, when it was not fun to keep talking about it in the truther world, that if there's a larger plan here of mandate cultivation, that's exactly what Donald Trump would want so that he can respond to, right? If we're right that there's a feedback loop, it requires a closing of the loop.
Yeah.
If Trump is putting things into the zeitgeist and the truth community is just accepting those things, then there's no loop being closed. Where if he's putting stuff out there and saying, hey, the news is fake, and the truth community stands up and says, stop fucking talking to them then maybe he gets to respond to that.
Yeah.
And if as we've been doing most consistently, if Trump says the elections are fake, then not only is it not going against the plan to tell him to help fix them, but it might be exactly what he is attempting to prompt out of the truth community. And it just so happens that the people who are demonizing the attempt to do that the most are people in the truth community.
Yeah. So I saw a comment in the chat I want to address. Somebody, I don't remember who said it. It was a while up, but they were like, I love Q, so I'm torn. And nobody's like telling you to not.
I'm pro Q.
Like none of us are anti-Q. Nobody's telling you to like make a decision or choose here. It's like the saying, guns don't kill people, people kill people. It's the same thing with the Q drops, okay? The Q drops themselves don't kill people. Decoders kill people. Like it's all about how you use it, right? And there are responsible ways, irresponsible ways, and we don't even need to get into that because I don't think anybody's 100% right or perfect with any of their information. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. We are just all doing our best to figure it out. Some people aren't doing that. Some people are just literally trying to connect as many things to the Q drops as possible every single day so that people give them more money. That's
and then
the behavior
ignore
that I don't like.
all the things that they're wrong about every day.
Yes. Like the people who are posting about the EBS thing coming up this week, like they were pointing to Q drops saying that there's going to be an EBS test. If that hasn't happened, like, are they going to, what happens then? Like they're wrong. You know what I mean?
They just move on.
But they just move on. And so does their, but that's fine. It's all about how you use it. Information itself, the Q drops, whatever it is, that in and of itself does not matter. It's the people behind it and how they use it. That's the problem. Because there's going to be good information, bad information some people can't figure out, whatever. But if the person has good, bad, or evil intentions, that's where the issues come in. And that's where we can be that, I don't know, like we can be, that's where we can affect change, is do our best with the information we have available and at least try to use it the right way or what we think is the right way, even though we're not claiming to have all the answers. Like that's the thing, like when people disagree in the chat and they like say all these things like, oh my gosh, John, you're so wrong. Like, this is so disappointing. Like, that's fine. That's good. I don't know everything. I'm not the smartest person on Badlands. I'm not the best speaker. I'm like, I'm half retarded, guys, just like every one of you.
You're like in 13th or 14th, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm way down there. I'm at least above Alpha and maybe G Money.
That's fair.
Those are the safe ones. The rest of them, depending on the day. But you know what I mean? Like, we're trying to figure this out together. But I did have a question. And it might be a little out of line now. Maybe not out of line, but off topic. But you said something earlier about how big the Q community is. And I'm just curious, do you think the Q community is bigger now than it was on November 2nd of 2020? Or November 4th? November 3rd was that election, right?
That's a good question. November 3rd. The reason I said that, I guess, is could be falling prey to the very algorithms I'm criticizing, right? First, on two levels. First of all, if you believe the numbers that the algorithms are showing you, then certainly right now with the Epstein files, the major national talking point, even international talking point, if you go on any social media platform, the most viral messages, online communications, and even on YouTube, I checked this, of the last couple of weeks are all about the Epstein files, obviously. Yeah. Many of the most viral things to come out about that are being posted or disseminated, good and bad, there's good stuff too, by Q people. Like I even saw, I've mentioned him before, but a former gamer YouTuber, Asmongold, has been like digging on the Epstein files when he used to be a gamer on YouTube. His videos do like millions of views, and he's been referencing the Q people constantly this week.
Yeah.
And
it's probably not a bad thing necessarily.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I can be convinced it's good, but that's part of why I maybe assume that it's huge. But to play devil's advocate against myself, we are also all in algorithmic echo chambers, even echo chambers that we don't intend to create. You know, like people that have not cultivated a following or have followed accounts that are into this stuff are not going to see the same things as the people watching a show like this. So maybe, you know, people watching a show like this are going to be inundated with the appearance of all this Q stuff. I think there's one metric, it's a loose metric, but that lends credence to the idea that the Q community is far bigger than people think.
Yeah.
And that is, G-Money actually said this. I was listening to a little bit of Onlylands on Friday night. I think G-Money brought this up. The two most, the two terms in most media headlines over the course of the last 10 years is Trump and then QAnon.
Really?
Yeah, in terms of a specific target, negative headlines, it was those two things. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a year-long stretch where Q is in 8th place or something like that. Yeah. But during its zeitgeist, this might actually go back to your point, maybe it was bigger 5 years ago. During that stretch, Q was the second most searched term on the internet after Donald Trump. From 2017 to 2019, it was the second most searched term. So to me, the reason I said there's small dog syndrome, it's not me trying to criticize the Q community. It's certain Q influencers who act like nobody listens to them because everyone's afraid of the truth they're spreading, when their content, which the people I'm talking about is garbage tier content that post about Biden clones from emails that are not substantiated and you know, that I think hold us back. Those posts and those accounts are the most amplified accounts in the political sphere these days, outside of like the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's accurate for people to act like it's this little thing that nobody knows about and the media is afraid of. You just said you got Bill Maher on there talking about it, and they've been talking about it for years. Now they're just changing their tune and they're saying like, oh, maybe they were right about this and that. That might be good. Like I'm partial to the argument, the Overton's window, the Overton's goalpost argument I myself have made years ago of saying, hey, if they're talking about you and they're having to change how they're talking about you, I do think that's a good thing. But I don't think Bill Maher is good for talking about it. And I think that's sometimes where the media wires get a little crossed.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of that yet. I want to kind of see how it plays out. I want to see like how the newfound Q discussions because of the Epstein files have played out. Because like when you look at what Trump has said about the Epstein files and how the Epstein files have actually played out, as I've been saying since day one, this was not a Trump pushed thing. This was pushed by other people online, made this to be this big, huge, you know, whatever everybody thought the Epstein files were and never went down that rabbit hole fully. And Trump is calling it hoax. Like Trump never pushed this op. It wasn't his op. It was an op against him, in my opinion. And now all of a sudden, like this is probably the most climactic moment we've had from it. I don't know if we're going to get more files. They're still trying to like breathe some more life into it. There might be more out there. I don't know. But out of a hoax, now all of a sudden we're getting like people like Bill Maher talking about Q again. And then when it comes to like these posts and how viral they're getting, does anybody feel maybe my perspective on social media is different, but like I don't feel like we have free speech in this country. I still feel like all the social media platforms are basically controlled in some form or fashion. Like the algorithms don't make any sense. The view numbers that some posts get from some accounts, they don't make any sense. The fact that it has an algorithm at all makes no sense. Like, so what is, like, we have a confluence of things here. We have the Epstein files being a hoax. We have this massive file drop, and then we're getting Maurer, whatever, talking about Q drops, and then some of the Q posts are the ones that are going most viral. What does that mean? What does that really mean? Like when you think about all those things, like, do you know where I'm going with this? Like, there's something off about it, and I don't know what it is.
I wrote, that was the whole subject of my my article that I published today, the honeypot hoax. And when I say that, I'm saying I don't come to a conclusion in that. I often don't, right? But I like kind of writing aloud, going down those thought paths. I like playing if-then games with these things in my own mind. That's why I always think about bicameral thinking. Okay, is this, for example, there are good ways of looking at this. I think the reason sometimes we come off cynical about this to Q people and to truthers, in my opinion, is because we have a threat assessing mentality. Like, to use a Star Trek term, our phasers are set to stun, or our phasers are set to kill.
Yeah.
Like, if we see
we have
what
trust
could,
issues.
Yeah, and not just for us, but I think for what we believe in, right?
Yeah.
For Donald Trump and for me, to answer some people that may not know this, because I know there's always some new people, I consider myself a Q person. This is why I always have to say it this way, even though I often criticize Q commentary in recent years. I said a million times, the most read article I've ever written is still pinned to the top of my Substack. It's called We Are Q. As Jon said earlier,
a t-shirt, bro. You've said that so many times. I feel like you say that every show.
Pretty much.
You
But
should
that's
get
only
a
because we
t-shirt.
have to do this now. As you said earlier, though, I do think it's a weapon, essentially. I'd go so far as to say it is a weapon.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Informational.
deployed like a weapons cache they left behind, almost like they left for the Taliban. And anybody could pick it up. And, you know, another aside is that a lot of the most viral Q accounts in the last few years were not there in 2017, 18, and 19. Now, I wasn't online either. I was online, but I mean, I wasn't posting about this stuff at that time. I was following the Q drops, but I've never claimed to be a Q-fluencer. I think that's curious. When we talk about the Q drops being deployed as this weaponry, right? Like in an info war, information is weaponry. It presents an asymmetric advantage or disadvantage, depending on how it's used. So why is it that all the most viral accounts now came around in like 2022, 23? I'd really say 2024. A lot of them got their huge followings. The really negative way of looking at that is that they're not Q people, and they're here to rug pull that whole movement and make it look retarded. That's conspiratorial. The not so conspiratorial way of looking at those people is that they saw an opportunity. And as I was saying about the mainstream media, if people who are looking to cultivate social media followings, and to your earlier point, monetized social media followings, know that there's a community of at least millions online. We can argue about how many there are, bigger or smaller. There are millions of Q people online. If you find out that all you have to do to 90% of that audience is only be positive all the time, force every single headline or public event or Trump communication into a decode, and say, trust the plan on loop, and doing that grants you tons of social media amplification, tons of Rumble rants, tons of donations, and tons of goodwill, that's a business opportunity. It's the same, and I've been saying this on the back end at Badlands, and boy, am I being proven more right than I thought I was going to be on this specific point. But I said, these people are only a couple steps away from becoming internet preachers. And when I said internet preachers, I didn't mean well-meaning preachers who believe in the word of God. I meant TV preachers from like the 80s and 90s, the kind that get your grandmother to call them and give them a bunch of money because they're saying things about Jesus and how the parish needs your money and we need your help and all this kind of stuff, right? So I think that's happening. But in terms of the Epstein stuff, man, I don't know. I'm of two minds about it in terms of the hoax and everything. I think it's either a flood the zone strategy by the media where there is damaging stuff associated with Epstein that is what the truth community has been saying it is since the Pizzagate days, and they're flooding it with all the connections that aren't criminal, like Howard Lutnick and Donald Trump and Elon Musk, or that the Epstein thing, to your earlier point, is not what the Q people have believed it is, but that it's covering up for something that is that. You know, the media is basically using it as a potential Band-Aid to distract from the things that actually matter.
Yeah, I mean, just going back and looking at the unfolding of this op, right? Like, it became what it was. How much of it was true, we don't know. Like, in terms of people building up the story behind Epstein, because I don't think we got answers. As much as people want to say we got answers, I don't think we got any definitive answers out of this recent release. But like, just thinking of how many times Trump has called it a hoax, and in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, it clearly wasn't what we thought it was based on what everybody's saying and what Trump is saying. And then now that it's out, like, look at the distraction it is. And this is even saying, like, I'm a guy who loves documents. I love reading through things. When people post things, I like to go in and like immediately dig to find out if that person's just grifting or if they're onto something. And there's some interesting stuff that's coming out of it. It's distracted me a little bit too. But that's what it is, in my opinion. I think it's a distraction, and it makes me like, if Trump is telling us like, hey guys, it's time to move on, and everybody gets all pissed off, like, no, we can't move on. We got to stay talking about the Epstein files because look at all the stuff that's in here. But Trump's like, it's a hoax, guys. We got to move on. Like, there's bigger things that we got to keep moving forward. Like, that's our guy, right? Especially like for the people who consistently say trust the plan. Isn't he the guy that's like dictating the plan? Like, when Trump, like, you decode everything Trump says, and then he says like, hey, let's move on from the Epstein files. They're like, okay, well, we can't do that. Like, we'll do everything, but we can't do that. Like, why? It's just some of the stuff that's coming up right now. It's just such a, in my mind, it's like a contradiction. It's turning some people into hypocrites, which I'm a hypocrite too sometimes. That's everybody's human. We're all hypocrites at some point or another.
I'm never a hypocrite.
Other than you. But like, I'm at this point where even with this, like, I'm not emotionally attached to the Epstein story. I'm engaging with it on an honest level. I'm trying to anyway. And I'm almost just waiting for, like, I'm bored of it already. Like, I just want to move on. Just what's next? What's the next side we can fall for? And the mainstream media is even giving us Guthrie. Like, they're giving us an opportunity, an off ramp, and everybody's like just staying on the Epstein files.
Well, when you were saying that, Steph Asia put a good comment in here. Who said, where is it?
Trump contradicts himself.
Trump contradicts himself all the time. Now, that's, I agree with that. And again, this is kind of a similar point I made about Fox giving QComs. Now, let's agree with that. Like, we all would basically agree with that and say, I think we've all kind of said this in various degrees. You kind of just said it earlier in a different way in terms of not so much what he says, but what he does in relation to the media, right? He says one thing, he does another. He says elections are fake. Hey, get out and vote. All that kind of stuff. So he plays these games. We've talked about the game theory involved in that. I'm not criticizing him in a game theory sense. I can understand this stuff. I think, if I would put a different spin on what Jon is saying, it's if you're a Q follower and you understand that Donald Trump does contradict himself at times, then you must at least admit that when you are interpreting Donald Trump's communications about the Epstein drama, you are interpreting them how you want to interpret them.
For sure.
So that's what's funny. Point. There's a lot of people in the chat tonight that I think are well-meaning, but they're saying like, but Trump contradicts himself, but Q said disinfo is necessary. How many times have we heard that? Right? And I was there. I was reading them as they were coming out. So I've defended that. I understand logically why it would be necessary. If you were an information dissemination program that is public source, open source, of course you're not going to put like stuff out there that could compromise the plan that you're saying that you're a part of, while you're still trying to give the people enough to front run certain things. Like, that makes total sense to me. But you must then operate as if not everything the Q drops told you can be taken at face value. And that, I think, is the contradiction of the truth community in many different ways right now. And Epstein is just a great example of it. Whatever you believe about Epstein, you have to admit you have largely informed how you believe that. It has not been Donald Trump, and I would argue it has not been the Q drops either. Because if it's been Trump and the Q drops, you have willingly ignored when those drops and when that person tells you you are in an information war, you are in a psychological operation, we have disclosed to you that we are running psychological operations on you. So you might have a certain interpretation, John, of when Trump says it's an Epstein hoax. I don't think it's unreasonable to think, I don't know, maybe. I mean, this is the same guy who's been saying elections are fake. Is he saying that? I mean, what has been the net, if I want to play devil's advocate against that, what has been the net effect of Donald Trump saying it's a hoax? Every mainstream media outlet in the world is printing Epstein, 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 right? So there's a scenario where 6 months from now, or like the Clintons get deposed, and there is this big bombshell, and it's like Trump baited it in, right? I don't think that that's going to happen, but I can play with those theories. I think what can bother us at times is there's a lack of consistency within the truth community mindset to say like, hey, if you believe a certain thing about the Epstein files, you may be right. But you should start admitting that Donald Trump didn't tell you that and the Q drops didn't tell you that. You took hints and you extrapolated and formed your own beliefs about these things.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you make a really good point about how Trump operates. I always say never take Trump at face value. He could be like, look at the video he put out this week of the election, machines, which had the racist thing at the end with the Obamas as apes.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about that, which ironically allows him the opportunity to talk about election machines and fraudulent elections. Like he's an expert at narrative warfare and psyops and all this stuff. And so you're absolutely right. He very much could be wanting more people to talk about the hoaxes and stuff. But the issue where I see it comes in is people get emotionally attached to one aspect of a story. We call this like you're on the rug, right? And I do it too. I'm on the election Fulton County rug. I'm a little bit on the RICO rug, but I've been slowly stepping off the RICO case rug because we've had no news on it recently. But everybody has their rugs, right? And when you're on a rug, you're under a threat of that rug being pulled out from under you. And so when I look at the Epstein stuff, like I personally am not attached emotionally to the Epstein story because I never got down the rabbit hole early on. I wasn't, I didn't read Q. I didn't really wake up and get into this world until, 2021 really. But what did that have been 2020? Yeah, 2021. I started following the Russiagate stuff in 2018, late 2018. Never got into the Q stuff. And then I started writing about this stuff in 2021. Yeah, after the election.
Yeah.
But because of that, like I'm not emotionally attached to it. So that's why I'm coming at this from like, okay, well, this feels like a hoax. Everything I've seen from it so far has been a hoax. Trump says it's a hoax. While I can acknowledge and like take the bicameral approach of understanding like it may well not be a hoax. There may be bigger things at play here. He may be baiting everybody. I don't know that though. But because I'm not emotionally attached, I'm like, whatever. I'm ready to move on until something brings it back in. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at with this. And that's where I try to be with most things, is not on the rug and not emotionally attached to any of the stories, so that when something happens, it doesn't take me down with it.
I totally agree. And by the way, I'm playing devil's advocate. And I would probably say that if we had this conversation a year ago, I would have, like, if you put a gun to my head and were like, which of these bicamerals would you think? I would probably have said, I think it's bait. I think Trump's baiting it out, etc. Now, honestly, I trend more toward your reading of it. I'm not going to speak for him, but I think the way Chris has talked about this, he certainly at least has warned about the framing that you're giving many times. I don't know if that's necessarily what he believes or not, that basically it is a rug and that Trump has been trying to warn us that it's a rug. But the funny thing is, the reason I am leaning that way now, partly it's watching what the media is doing. So, a lot of people know that I manage the Badlands Substack, and, Ash and myself, Ash and Ghost take turns as to who is kind of running lead on the brief that comes out Monday through Friday. So because of that, we'll do more deeper dives in the news cycle just to kind of see like what's out there besides what we've been talking about. And over the last week or so, looking at the headlines that are coming out about the media, it's interesting to me to watch how they start cultivating narratives in real time. You know, like they'll come out with a couple things for a few days when there's a big scandal, but then they kind of refine their approach and they all start getting on the same page. And they were talking about the Epstein files a week ago, and they were mentioning Trump and Bannon and this and that. But I've noticed in the last weekend, this weekend, they're all coalescing around one similar framework. I saw The Guardian do this, AP News, Politico, and The Atlantic off the top of my head. All of them ran articles in the last 48 hours talking about how in Europe, we're seeing accountability for the elites that were involved with the Epstein network. There's people stepping down from positions and all this kind of stuff. So the accountability is fake, right? Nobody's getting charged with anything. They're resigning from public positions. And they're saying we're not seeing that in the US. So this is the US media and the European globalist media are coordinating on an Epstein narrative. And their conclusion is we, the globalists, are taking responsibility for our role in the Epstein op.
Yeah.
But the Americans are not. And who do they mean, guys?
Trump,
they mean
Elon.
Donald Trump and Elon and Steve Bannon
Peter Thiel.
and Peter Thiel, Howard Lutnick, etc. Peter Thiel, maybe I'll agree with them on that one. But the other four I'm okay with for now. But that's just to say there's an op there. Now, maybe the Epstein op is what I used to believe it was and what the truth community believes. But that's an awful bold strategy if it was. And the other reason that I lean toward kind of your framing of it now is, I've said this on some shows recently, I think even 2 days ago, we got the latest statistics, supposedly, out of DHS and Kristi Noem and Tom Homan, that we're at like 140,000 children rescued in the last 12 months. From trafficking operations.
They said found. And we don't really know what that means, but.
Yes, but they did say many of there was 60,000 had been rescued. This was from months ago, that number. Yeah. But the other thing is those rescues, Dan Bongino was actually involved in talking about some of this stuff right before he left. He specifically was talking about the 764 cult and crime network. And
we interviewed
that is,
BX on X. She was on Basis Conspiracies, and she's been the one who's like the leading proponent of discovering and like exposing the 764 cult.
Yeah, and my point there is to say, I think people are afraid of stepping off the Epstein rug at Trump's prompting because, this is just my opinion, people in the truth community and watching this show believe that these things exist. They believe that elites are involved in the trafficking and the sacrifice and ritualistic bullshit with children. And I do too. Mm-hmm. But I would just say the Trump administration is not telling you to get off the rug because they're saying that this doesn't exist. They're putting out DOJ press releases telling you that they're rolling up a literal satanic cult that has been trafficking and killing children for the last however many years, and they've rescued 60,000 of them. So I don't think that they're trying to distract you from Epstein. I think they're trying to say, guys, we're actually doing something about this. And the Epstein narrative is not.
Yeah. Something I want to point out, the way Trump has described the Epstein files multiple times now is that it's like the Russia collusion hoax or the perfect phone call hoax or the 51 intelligence agencies and laptop hoax. If you look at every one of those, like while I understand and I know that Trump does bait the media often, the Russia collusion hoax was like when Trump said, we need to move on here. This is a hoax. They're trying to take me down. Like, was that him trying to bait them and bait everybody to look at that? Or did he earnestly want to move on? Because that was a hoax by them. We have like most of the details on it. They're still trying to get to the bottom of some of it, but we have most of the details now. That was a fabricated story, fabricated intelligence paid for by the Clinton campaign. The media was all in on it. The intelligence community, they fabricated the ICAs, and like that was an enemy hoax that they pushed. The perfect phone call, another thing, led to the impeachment hoax. Like the enemy does make moves, and they do have have long-running ops where they try to take him down using the info war space. And that's why I do think it's important. And people want to still continue to try to fight me on this. But Trump has never been the one to bring up the Epstein files. He has only ever brought it up in response to questions. The one time that people like, well, 2015 at TPU or CPAC or whatever, like a month after it came out and it was huge trending news about Bill Clinton being on the Epstein flight logs or whatever, he's asked, what are your thoughts about Obama? What are your thoughts about Hillary? What are your thoughts about Bill? And he answers there. That's the only time he's ever brought it up without somebody mentioning the Epstein files or anything before him. And I still only give him a pass on that. But I'll give you guys that one. Ever since then, he has never once on any campaign stop, on any press conference or anything, been the one to bring up the Epstein files. And he is the lightning rod, like I said. If he wanted the Epstein files to be the thing, because there was something there that he wanted to be discussed, he would have brought us there. He is the lightning rod. And he never did that with the Epstein files. He only ever responded to people. And so challenge still, guys, if you can find a clip of Trump bringing that up unprompted, and that's with context too, like don't just show a clip of him talking about it, show the question he was asked, because it's every single time. You won't find one. It's never happened. And that's why, to me, this is one of those hoaxes akin to the Russia collusion hoax, akin to the 51 intelligence agencies and the impeachment and everything, because they do ops and they try to distract us all the time. And that's why I think that's what this is. And I could be wrong. Maybe there's more coming, but that's where I'm at on this right now.
Yeah, and and I have to say, as I said a minute ago, I am increasingly trending in that direction. But I think there's nuance to that. I think the reason you get so much pushback for it, this is just a headline that I saw the other day out of the Hill. It's not just Trump, saying it's a hoax. It's him saying the country should move on.
He probably said it in response to a question, I bet.
Well, this bolsters your point. He was talking about we should move on from the Epstein files. What did he say? I think it's really time for the country to get on something else. To get on to something else, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. Trump noted he has not read the newly released files. Blah, blah, blah. Trump on Tuesday dismissed Musk and Lutnick's names in the files, saying, quote, I'm sure they're fine. He doubled down on assertions that the latest batch absolves him, claiming a conspiracy that had been waged against him as perpetuated, this is interesting, as perpetuated, quote, by Epstein and other people. I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else like healthcare, something people care about. Now,
what day was this, by the way?
This was February 3rd.
Okay.
So 5 days ago. So what was it, like Tuesday? The reason I thought that was interesting is when he says this was a hoax perpetrated by Epstein and other people. That's what that article on the 3rd is actually what prompted me to pivot from an article I was writing into the one I released today, the honeypot hoax. Because a lot of what you're talking about, I started to play with the idea of, okay, if it's a hoax, what kind of hoax was it, right? Because there's a lot of nuance there, right? There can be a real thing that happens, and then there's lies told about that thing. There can be an entirely fabricated hoax, that none of it is real. And I was kind of diving down into what does he mean when he says Epstein and others were involved in this hoax? I don't know what the answer is, but I went down some thought paths, and one of them is that, Epstein was involved in not just in some crimes against children, like that's codified in law. It's not ritualistic sacrifice that's been codified in law, but trafficking young girls, mostly to himself, by the way, is what he was charged with, and that's what the DOJ claims. I'm not saying that that's all, but that's what the claims are. But I think it's interesting that Epstein was somebody who was kind of a procurer of elite friends, right? Like he knew everybody. He clearly was trying to get involved financially, politically, whatever, with like every who's who. And when Trump is referring to the Epstein hoax, and he's referring to Epstein as part of the Epstein hoax, it makes me kind of think of it all a little differently and think, hey, was part of the hoax Epstein trying to get involved with people because the machine behind him was willing to burn the Epstein card at any point, even though, like, in other words, I guess the way to frame this is why I need like 5,000 words in my articles.
Yeah.
I wonder if the actuals that the Q community and truth community thinks are not real, but that the people who perpetuated those narratives was the Epstein network in order to compromise narratively the people he was involved with, right? Like, so if Epstein's reputation was that toxic, Epstein could weaponize his own reputation, and the people behind Epstein could weaponize his reputation.
Yeah.
And say like, hey, maybe people are right in saying Epstein was associated with Mossad. Well, what does Mossad do with their operators? They use them as patsies.
Yeah.
So who's to say that it isn't Mossad who is claiming all these things about Epstein, their agent, that are not true, because they got Epstein involved with all of these different people that they want blackmail material over, even if that blackmail material is largely fake.
Might be a stupid question, and I have a lot of things I want to say here quick.
Yeah.
Number one, Q After Hours, Alpha had to cancel the show. I don't know why, but I don't think they're going live after this tonight, but they'll be back on next Sunday. Question, just briefly, probably a stupid one, but do we know for a fact, like, being honest with ourselves, do we know for a fact that Epstein was a Mossad agent? Like, was that proven?
We do not.
Has that been proven? That's
I said that as a theory. No.
Okay, so I just like, if maybe that has been proven. I don't know if I've seen it. I know a lot of people think that, assume
he
that.
Has been connected to known Mossad operatives, but he's been connected to everybody.
Yeah, he's connected to everybody. It's very possible he is, though. I'm not saying that's not the case. I do want to play the full clip and the context of what you just read, because again, that was not even Trump himself bringing up the Epstein files. He was asked a question and he responded, and I think it's important to listen to what he actually said here and the context.
And we're getting along very well in Venezuela with the leadership. Very, very well. You know, we took in 50 million barrels of oil. It's right now heading to Houston. And we're getting along very well with them, but we're going to work with them, yes.
Before this even finishes, Ghost in the chat says, Ghislaine Maxwell's father was Mossad 100% and MI6. That's great. But my question was, do we have proof that Jeffrey Epstein was Mossad? That's an assumption. Like, we're making that logical connection, and it's probably logical and fair to do, but that's still not proof, in my opinion. At least doesn't cross the threshold of proof for me. So that's just all I'm saying, is I don't think we've gotten that proof.
Mr. President,
you had in your office here Peter Mandelson, the British ambassador. You were shaking hands with him over a trade deal. He's today been forced to resign from the House of Lords, the upper house of the British Parliament, over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. Just wondered if you had any reaction to that, since obviously he was here before.
I didn't know about it, but I really don't know too much about it. I know who he is. It's too bad. It's too bad. You know, speaking of Epstein, I will say this. A reporter named Wolf and Epstein conspired. This just came out yesterday in the millions of pages of documents, how crazy this is, conspired against me in order to fight like hell to make sure I lose the election. That's the only thing that was mentioned about me. Now, about Democrats, some really bad stuff, but about me, that Wolf, whoever Wolf is, he wrote a couple of books, and Epstein conspired against me. Did you know that, Mr. Senator? Did you know that? They conspired against me so I lose the election, or worse. So that takes care of Epstein as far as Trump is concerned. But you got a lot of Democrats out there that are very much involved with Epstein. But I'll be honest with you, you got to get back to running the country too. Millions and millions every week. You know, when Epstein was alive, nobody cared about him. When he's dead, they care about him. But it's really a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican. It's a Democrat problem.
Everybody cares about him. I mean, wait, did he confirm he's alive? Is that? Wait, no.
Well, it is interesting, though. And that I had not seen that clip. I had only read the quotes. But the, one of the framings I had said that I was using in that article was the idea of essentially Epstein being a honeypot, but a patsy, like a patsy honeypot. So when Trump says, and again, this is just a random theory. I'm just saying there's so many different ways you can interpret this stuff. But I think it bolsters your point of saying, okay, let's say Maxwell's father was Mossad, and let's say Maxwell was Mossad. Well, they could use Jeffrey Epstein as a patsy and make up all this shit. I mean, Maxwell's the one who's constantly wanting to testify about Epstein. Like, do we think she's going to say nice things about Donnie?
Yeah.
So there's, when Trump says like, hey, nobody knew about this guy and the Democrats have conspired with Jeffrey Epstein, it's like, well, that kind of reminds me of like Lee Harvey Oswald and all the rest of it, where it's like, hey, did this assassin pull the trigger? Maybe, but is that the person? Is that the truth of what happened to JFK? No. So with Jeffrey Epstein, that's kind of how I think of it, is like Jeffrey Epstein was a dude who was involved in some shady stuff, but was he actually involved in the kind of things that they say? Or is that something that the people behind him are now, you know, sacrificing him on behalf of?
I think the reality is we're probably never going to actually get to the bottom of what Epstein was, and that's a problem, because like I mean, it's only a problem if you let it be a problem. I should say that, because you don't have to let it be a problem, but it could be a problem. The one thing that everybody I think assumed about Epstein is, yeah, he's Mossad, and that's very possibly true. It's probably even likely. I'm willing to say likely. I'm just saying we haven't got proof of it, but also that they were like raping kids and using that as like blackmail on people. But you know what? The one thing we haven't seen from the files here is any proof of that happening. We haven't seen any proof of blackmail. We haven't seen any proof. And guys, I know this is hard to hear, but what we haven't seen proof. Proof is like, you know, something that actually proves the thing happened. We haven't seen that yet. And I know that's hard to hear, because like everybody wants,
the truth community hates that.
I know everybody wants their confirmation bias to be like fed and nurtured all the time. And there are people out there that'll do that. But if we're being honest with ourselves, which is important to be a participant in the InfoWar and in the truth community, you have to be honest with yourself first and foremost. We haven't seen that yet come out of the files. Like, so what does that mean? Like, if everybody's been saying that's what's in there, that's what was going to be in there, that's what we've been waiting for, that's why we wanted to see the files, but that isn't what we've seen yet. So what are these things?
You
like,
wait until the next batch, John.
Yeah, now we just have to wait and see the videos, because like that's the next goalpost. Like at some point you can only move the goalpost so far before you're no longer on a football field and you're, I don't know what the fuck you're doing.
And I want to let you go in a minute here, but I just, the reason I can understand, besides confirmation bias, to your point, why some people in the truth and Q community feel immediately defensive when there's a suggestion that Trump is being honest when he's saying like, hey, this is a hoax. That's why I'm bringing up 764 and that, is to say, I'm not claiming, none of us are claiming that Donald Trump is backpedaling from the idea that trafficking of children and even ritualistic and satanic abuse of them has been going on. I think that stuff is real. The DOJ under Donald Trump is telling you it's real, and they're telling you that they're doing something about it. But when you combine that with the fact that they are also telling you, stop wasting your time with the Epstein hoax, you know, it's hard to square that circle. Like, at some point, you've got to think, if these people are actually rooting out child predators and these trafficking operations, while also telling us this other thing that Democrats are pushing is a hoax, sometimes it really might just be that simple. Like, why would they be lying about that?
Yeah, a couple of comments in the chat here. One, Clairecat says, legit question, John, what exactly would you constitute actual proof in your eyes? Like, okay, if you're telling me something happened, like if you're telling me that one of these bottles fell off the floor and broke, proof of that happening would be, well, one, there's no bottle up here anymore, and then two, it's on the ground and it's shattered into a million pieces. Like, one of those things would even be close to proof. But like, you can't be in the other room and be like, see this pillow on the couch? It was on the other side of the pillow, but now it's on this side of the pillow. And so that means the bottle in your office fell and shattered on the floor. Like, that's not proof. That's something else. That's something else completely. Like, proof is any evidence showing that the thing you're saying happened. That's proof. And then another in the chat was, hold on, John, why do you think we've seen some elites step down from their positions? And I think you hit on this earlier, is that it's also being weaponized. Like, they created what Epstein has become. He's become a meme. Like, the Epstein didn't hang himself was probably the most memeable thing in history.
Ever.
Arguably.
Yeah, I think.
There's been nothing more like in terms of how it's crossed. It didn't matter your politics, didn't matter your age. Everybody was like, Epstein didn't kill himself. Like that's how big the Epstein lore was. And so because of what it's been built up to and what it represents, and again, Trump did not build it up to that. Other people did. That was done by other people and people in the intelligence community over how that whole thing was handled and investigated and all those things. Like there's a million reasons, there's a million things you can point to as to how the Epstein thing was built up. The only thing you can point to Trump is like what we're told and what we know is that he was trying to tear it down. Like he was trying to take him down. He didn't associate with him directly. He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, all those things. Like he was a federal informant. But why these other people are stepping down is because that thing has been created as such a toxic thing that you have to now. Like if you've been associated with them, that is your scarlet letter, and you now have to accept the consequences of that scarlet letter. And then on taking that further to what you said earlier is by them like getting these other world leaders to step down, like, okay, now, well, Trump, now what about you? Like when are you going to step down, Trump? Like it's your turn. Everybody else is doing it because it's so toxic. You got to do that too. That's being weaponized against Trump.
And here's a I'll go one step further. We've got depositions coming up this month, right?
Of
very serious ones.
Oh yeah.
With Ghislaine Maxwell, I believe Tuesday or something. The Clintons, or at least Hillary, the Clintons later this month, in front of the very serious James Comer committee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to bolster that point, I've been using this term burn cards lately. That's how I first started thinking about it with the Clintons and this idea of the Epstein hoax, taking Trump's framing of the Epstein hoax more seriously, like you and Chris have been for a long time, and saying, okay, if it's a hoax like you guys have been saying, what would that look like? What would, and when you're talking about the elites, that's when I started using the concept of burn cards, of saying, I know there's burn cards are used in various things. For me, it was in Magic the Gathering when I was a nerdy kid. I would play that game. And the idea in that game is you're a wizard playing against another wizard. You're both wizards. You have creatures, you have weapons, you have armies, and you have spells. And there were cards that were called burn cards or instants. And what that meant was you play a card and it does a lot of damage to the enemy, but you lose that card, right? That card is no longer on the field. Whereas a permanent card, I play it on the field and it stays on the field until you destroy it. It's weaker, but it's longer lasting. So if you're thinking of the game theory of the info war, and if everybody watching this show probably believes on some level that the Clintons are a part of the deep state, do you think the Clintons run the deep state? Does anybody in this audience think that the Clintons are the most powerful people in the world? Like, I would say almost nobody does. In the Q world, in the truth world, etc. So do you think if the enemy believed they could get Trump by using burn cards, they would use those burn cards?
They tried to kill him, so I feel like they would do anything.
And more to my point is, they would gladly sacrifice their own if it meant taking down the most existential political and cultural threat to them that has ever existed. Absolutely they would. To your point, they tried to kill him.
Other than Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
Other than Bad Bunny. The only cultural threat worse than Trump is Bad Bunny, but continue.
True. But that's why I just think, when we look at these things and we say it's a hoax, well, the Clintons this, and this elite is stepping down and that elite. To your point, it's like, yeah. And doesn't that make the whole operation look a lot more real and a lot more concerning for Donald Trump? If all of these... Why does Hillary Clinton want to testify about Jeffrey Epstein?
A little weird.
Do you think it's because she's trying to help Donald Trump out?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't know. That whole thing has been a weird psyop too. Like they've made that a thing. Like everybody's like, we're finally going to get the arrests of Hillary and Bill Clinton, and it's going to be James Comer and Congress doing it. And then now we're going to get like testimony in front of Congress, and they are the ones asking for like, yeah, give us testimony. And James Comer's like, well, shit, no, well, we just wanted depositions. We don't want you to have like actual live testimony in front of people.
Yeah.
It was
Hillary's
like
asking for it.
Yeah, it's like they set a trap here. But another comment from the chat I want to just quick mention. Somebody said it's an ongoing investigation. They put it in all caps too. So, they're, very forcefully adamant that's what it is. And I know there are people online who, like, when you talk about redactions of the files, they will yell at you and be like, well, of course, you idiot. It's an ongoing investigation. They have to redact this stuff. But the honest question I have to say to you people is, how do you actually know that? Outside of people adamantly yelling at you that that's the case, people have been wrong about almost everything going back the last like 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Just them saying that doesn't prove it's an ongoing investigation. When it comes to the redactions, like we have emails of the FBI like asking for guidance on how to redact names of politicians and former presidents and secretary of states and victims and non-victims and all these things. Like, that's not them talking about like, hey man, there's an ongoing investigation here. How do we redact these things? You don't have any actual proof that that's what's going on. And I have no reason to believe there's still an ongoing active investigation into this. That is a hopium thing in my opinion. And I believe that's you trying to like feed your confirmation bias. But if you look at it objectively, I don't think that's the case. I think there are some shitty people in the intelligence community still covering for other shitty people in the world. I think some of the redactions are like that. I think some of the redactions are actual victims, but I don't believe there's an actual ongoing investigation. If there was, I think Trump would be the one that would want to point that out, right? Like, wouldn't Trump himself?
You would think so.
Want to be like, yeah, there's still an ongoing investigation. We're probably going to be bringing down some other people. Like, he's not afraid to say there's investigations.
Wouldn't he be signal boosting? Like, we're going to get Hillary Clinton in a couple weeks here. Wait till you see her deposition.
Yeah.
Instead, he hasn't said anything about it. And Hillary Clinton is on Twitter 2 days ago saying it's time for the people to see the truth, right? It's like, again, I often say you don't always end your analysis with the opposite game, but you should start it there. It's a pretty good place to start.
Reverse indicators are helpful.
If Hillary Clinton wants something really, really bad, is it good? For these and other insights, this is why people come.
This is another interesting aspect because, like you said, Congress is the ones doing it. Mm-hmm. Like, Congress has literally done nothing to help Trump these 2 years, or ever really, but especially these 2 years, they have done jack shit. They haven't passed anything part of his agenda, even the fake stuff that, like, I think is more of a controlled opposition dynamic type agenda, like the SAVE Act. Like, I don't think that's an actual, like, I don't think that's the solution to fix our elections. Even though Trump says it, they're pushing it. They can't even get that passed. They can't do anything. They're feckless. And yet now they're the ones that are going to be finally giving us the testimony from Clinton that we've been wanting. But that's not going to end how we want it to end. It's going to be social media clips from the social media influencers in Congress, and it's going to be retarded.
I will guarantee you that Hillary Clinton will spin the Epstein stuff against Trump. I'm not saying that to say it's going to work or matter, but I don't think we're going to get like revelations out of that. And yeah, to your point, who would have helped her amplify that messaging? Congress. Kind of strange. Congress and the media.
Weird.
All right, man. This was a later show, but I'll let you get to your kids, slap your girl around, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, kids aren't here, but I definitely will go slap my girlfriend around. So
nice. We all need to keep them in line. You got to keep the pimp hand strong and firm, otherwise they lose all the respect for it.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'll take my advice from you and say that you said it, so that I don't get in trouble, but you do. By the way, somebody in the chat made a real good point of how corrupt and all the things that the Clinton Foundation and Pay for Play and all the awful things the Clintons did, and they're only coming to testify about the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Isn't that sad?
Not Benghazi,
anyway.
Right? All right, man. I'm going to grab a rants, chill a little bit, but thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Catch you later.
Peace. Whoop. I have the power to press buttons. This is a disaster. Okay, leave. Get out of here. Somebody has to end the stream later, though. Not too much later. Okay?
Yeah, I'll end the stream. I was looking for my vagina clip to play, but you don't have any of the fun clips in your video.
I can still see him lurking backstage like a raccoon.
Yeah,
on the back
I'll get out of
porch.
here, though.
All right, get out of here. I want to start my shit talk after he's departed these lands. There, he's gone. He could technically come back. All right, I'll grab your rants, guys, and then we'll move on. That was fun. We understand as well that, the vast majority of this audience is used to having these kind of conversations and don't get mad. I just think I think Epstein, I'm glad. I know John's burned out by it and I understand why. I'm kind of glad the Epstein narrative is in the news cycle because I'm having fun engaging with it in this way. like we are tonight. And Q After Hours is not on tonight, guys. I know there's a post up for it. Sorry to disappoint you. The narrative. You'll still be subjected to the narrative. Yeah, Alpha had to cancel. Alpha and Josh had to cancel. Hang out with you guys a little bit longer. If you have any questions or any comments or anything like that, and you want to shoot a rant over or something, go for it. But otherwise, yeah, to put a button on the Epstein topic there, I think I am somebody who has believed probably most of the things the Q and Truth community have believed about Epstein and what he represents. The funny thing is, I still believe that he represents those things. Obviously, I'm obsessed with narrative warfare, cognitive ciphers, symbols, the war of stories. Under that framing, which is kind of abstract, I still think Epstein is acting ultimately as a cipher to I call it the darkest path in the info war that I think is true. Crimes against children will unite humanity. The Q refrain. I think it's real. I think that's true. I believe that. It certainly was the major thing that energized me. It wasn't what got me into Trump and the MAGA world and everything, but it was the thing that really energized me and got me invested to the point where I don't know, I've said before in the show, the first time I've prayed as an adult human being was in the wake of going down Pizzagate rabbit holes. Now, was half the shit I looked at fake? Probably 90% of the shit most of us have looked at is fake, but some of it's real, and enough of it is real to have let all of us know that there is a dark underbelly to our world that is far worse than any of us believed. And the reason I think the Epstein narrative is so important for us to be sober-minded about as I drink an old-fashioned is because we have to be willing to engage with what Trump says. And yes, I wrote the Master series about Trump's narrative fighting style, the fact that he speaks bicamerally, the idea that he speaks to multiple audiences at once, the fact that he's able to speak in paradoxes and riddles and all this kind of stuff. So I totally am sympathetic to that kind of stuff. But the irony is, the one thing that I feel like the truth community does not do is sometimes just take the thing Trump says repeatedly in a consistent manner at face value. They don't even consider it, right? It's okay to consider that maybe Trump has an alternate meaning when he's talking about Epstein being a hoax. It's also possible that, like, what if it was a hoax? How would Trump communicate that to you guys? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if you imagine, hypothetically, that he's telling the truth community is wholesale rejecting anything Donald Trump says about the Epstein files. He says it's a problem for Democrats. He says it's a problem for certain people. And obviously it has been. But that's where I started doing this writing and these thought paths of saying, if it's a hoax, how does it operate? And if it's a hoax, probably more importantly, what is it trying to cover up? And to me, I think the Epstein hoax resurfacing in 2025 and 2026 is trying to cover up the fact that the Trump administration has pushed the justice phase and the accountability phase for crimes against children further than it's ever been pushed before. As I said earlier, if you believe the numbers coming out of the administration, you've had at least 60,000 children rescued from trafficking operations. They didn't say how many of those were sex trafficking, but they did say in their releases, many of them, a significant percentage of those were sex trafficking, right? What's significant? 20%, 30%, 40%, 10%. If it's 10%, that's 6,000 kids. 6,000 kids, right? It's probably a lot more than that. I think most of us would believe that. Those are the ones they've rescued. They said they have found 130, 140,000 in the last 12 months. They've located that many missing migrant children. This is just migrant kids, by the way. This doesn't include American kids that go missing and all the rest of it, or just human trafficking in general among youth in the United States. This is migrant kids that have gone missing that they've located that were trafficked. Many of them were trafficked. Well, all of them were trafficked, but many of them were sex trafficked. It's usually why you would traffic kids. So if the Trump administration is pushing that forward on an actual level, and Trump is telling you that the Epstein hoax is a distraction, what is it distracting you from? Sure, there's election fraud, Fulton County, Minnesota, Somali fraud, state government fraud, California fraud, Sovereign Alliance Board of Peace, rejection of globalism, war against the central banking apparatus. There's a lot of things it's distracting you from, right? But I think it's also distracting you from the real progress and the real war they're fighting on trafficking. If you don't believe the numbers they're putting out, I don't know what to tell you. It's like, okay, you don't have to, but then we're in kind of a weird spot, right? Where it's like, we're in the truth community and Trump is leading the plan, but he's lying to us about Epstein being a hoax because Epstein's not a hoax, but he is lying to us about 60,000 kids being rescued, but he's trying to save the children. So, like, what's he doing then? Just lying to us about everything all the time? But your favorite, like, Q-fluencers know the truth? Just like they knew there was going to be an EBS blackout during the Super Bowl, that they're just memory hole and black hole that, because they don't ever actually make predictions. They just make predictions every single day that are wrong every single day. And then they say they weren't making a prediction. They were just following the comms, right? It's why I think it's disgusting. It's reprehensible. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing is probably the biggest, the word I would use the most. It is embarrassing what a lot of that community has turned into. I watch Josh and Alpha a good amount of the time, not the whole show, but I follow them on social media, follow Brad, follow Jordan Sather. I like the way they engage with that stuff. They're not the only ones, but they use it as weaponry. They use it to, they look at the current news cycle and see if they can learn anything in retrospect by looking back at the drops, which I often do. I often say the drops planted the seed in my mind that then grew into the Sovereign Alliance theory. That was my theory. It was not Anna Paulina Luna's theory. And I don't really give a shit that people think like, oh, it's sour grapes. Yeah, it's sour grapes. Fuck you. Like, people doing the work and coming up with research and doing the research and doing the documentation and writing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of words over the course of years on specific subjects. Me, John, Chris Paul, Brad, Jordan. Jordan was the first person to do Q drops, Q decodes online. And half of the Q community calls Jordan Sather an anti-Q doomer now. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's become a babysitting operation, is what it's become. Not the Q operation, but the people who use it in that way. It's ridiculous. If you don't think it's ridiculous, then fuck you. Like, then you're a baby. You should be babysat. You're sucking your thumb in a corner, waiting for somebody to decode the Super Bowl for you. It's fucking ridiculous. If you thought that's what the Q drops were about, you're a fucking retard. You're a retard. Move on. Move the fuck on. Like Donald Trump is telling you every day, look at all this stuff we gotta focus on. If you're using the Q drops to help inform your digs, good. I do it all the time. I think all of you should too. I don't think you need them. I think they can be very useful. But if you think the plan is to decode the Super Bowl, then it's a gay plan. It's a gay fucking plan, if that's the plan. I don't think that's the plan. I don't think that's what Patriots wanted us to do. I don't think that's what the Q drops wanted us to do. And part of the reason it annoys me is because the Q drops did play a massive role in my personal awakening. And I tried to take them at face value and do what they said. You know, do your own research, think for yourself, use the information provided here to learn about the battle space and the true nature of the enemy. And half the people I see out there start talking about Bitcoin as if it's related to Jeffrey Epstein. I saw the last few days, Bitcoin's Jeffrey Epstein now. Elon Musk is tied to Jeffrey Epstein, right? We're getting all that kind of stuff. AI and Jeffrey Epstein. Like, everything comes back to Jeffrey Epstein. So, again, I know there's a bunch of fucking idiots in the chat who I've never seen before. And I knew which show you guys were coming from, by the way, because you weren't very subtle about your rhetorical questions when the show started. You never are, your sock accounts. But yeah, I'm never attacking the Q drops. I'm always attacking people who are acting as prophets. They even call themselves disciples. People think we're exaggerating when we say it's become a religion to some people. And there are people out there calling themselves disciples of the Q drops. And it's getting a little silly. So, you know, obviously everybody's entitled to their own opinions on this kind of stuff. I did want to highlight a Jordan Sather post from earlier that he got flamed for, of course, just like Jon got flamed for correctly pointing out that a lot of people were incorrectly asserting that Jeffrey Epstein banked with the Bank of Baal, which was not true. But that went viral in the truth community because, of course, it did. Jordan Sather responding to Shadow of Ezra, who gets billions and jillions of retweets for this kind of thing. The survivors of Jeffrey Epstein are set to air a Super Bowl ad tonight, telling millions of viewers that 3 million Epstein-related files are still missing. The ad directly calls out Attorney General Pam Bondi, demanding the full release of all Epstein files. Now, I didn't see this ad, but I wasn't watching the entire thing. Jordan points out, this Epstein Survivor Super Bowl ad was produced by the World Without Exploitation, which is funded by the Tide Center, which gets money from George Soros and the Rockefellers, just so you know. Almost like there's a hidden political agenda behind release the files. We have been saying this for some time now. There can be a there. There can be truth to the Epstein saga, but the fact that the entire media industrial complex is now advocating for accountability on behalf of the files, come on now. Like, the first step to solving a problem is admitting we have one, right? So it bears watching. And Jordan's pointed that out in the past, that many of these quote unquote survivor press conferences of Epstein victims are funded and put on by NGOs. It doesn't mean it's all fake, but it means it's been weaponized. And I'll just shamelessly plug to people. I released this today. I know a lot of people haven't gotten to it because you were watching the Patriots get smoked in the Super Bowl. So the Patriots were not in control of the Super Bowl, though they are in control of everything else. I wrote the honeypot hoax on the temple trap and the door of doors. This is kind of a follow-up to some writings I've been doing for years now. The darkest path, the whole temple, and the temple trap. I'd recommend reading this whole quadrology as it's become, but that's a lot of words. That's a lot of burning bright words. But this is I think a much better written than spoken path through like a bicameral lens applied to the Epstein narrative. What do we know about it? What don't we know about it? What does Trump mean when he calls it a hoax? And I try to go bicameral about it and attack it from both angles and say that Trump is trying to boost it and bait it versus he's telling the truth about it and what that means. And ultimately, as I said earlier, I do believe that they are fighting human trafficking and crimes against children, the Trump administration and the Patriots. And I don't think that's what the media is doing. And ironically, I think the media is using the Epstein narrative as a shield, and a shield that looks like a maze. They are using it as a maze with enough cheese in there to get people to dig and to get people addicted and get people hooked. There's enough real there. There's enough cheese to take the bait and get lost in the maze. But ultimately, we're chasing down these meaningless British elites while it should be front page news everywhere that a massive cult, 764, has been largely dismantled in the last 12 months by the current administration. That's the exact kind of cult that we would have been woken up to by following these paths. And ultimately, the Q drops introduced me to the concept of child trafficking and Epstein, and I'm thankful for that. And Epstein as a cipher, overall, I think has been good, because I think when you pry that door open for people, even if you're trying to lie, you still pry the door open. So ultimately it's good. I just think, we can do better. So the reason we come off fiery sometimes, or at least I do, is because the people who flame us the most are Qfluencers. So I get it that there's probably a lot of people watching the show that are like, oh, I don't do that. And I'm a Q person. I know I'm a Q person too. But that's just the truth. It's become utterly retarded out there. Like I said, the most viral stuff going around about the Epstein files was all from Q people. It doesn't mean it was all Q people. It just means it was from Q people, and it was retarded and fake. So how does that make it look, right? How does that make... Wasn't JFK Jr. going to come out with Donald Trump in Dakota in 2019 or something, right? Because somebody decoded that, even though nothing in the drops said that. And then people conflate me conflating decoders, me criticizing decoders with me criticizing the drops. I love the drops. I think it's one of the most important information dissemination programs ever. And it worked to a large degree. But I think there's a lot of people who don't understand anything that's going on, and they don't try to understand anything that's going on. They don't try to understand the financial system. They don't try to understand the politics and the systems that the drops laid out. They don't try to understand the histories that the drops hint at. They don't try to understand when Donald Trump calls it an ancient practice. What is he talking about? Have you looked into that? Or are you waiting for somebody to decode the next drop that the drops told you to stop doing? I don't think that was the point. And I think that Trump is trying to give us a lot of hints of like, hey, this shit was useful. You don't need to move on from the drops. You can take them with you into a forward path in the info war. You don't have to wait for people to interpret them. The dark secret there is that there are people that all they can do is decode drops to decodes that never actually amount to anything. But they can't talk about anything else. They don't have any opinions. They don't have any ideas. They don't have any pushback. That's why I said it's a babysitting club. It's a prayer circle. And, it all comes out in the wash. People go where they should go, and the audience does or doesn't follow. So if you can go to burningbright.substack.com if you're interested in this. It is free, just like all my writings are. If you want to support me over there, you can. And with that out of the way, I will go through tonight's rants. There was a boost from earlier. Son of Kaczynski sent a boost to the narrative. The narrative with a chance of Ghost is dynamite on a Sunday night. Any chance of starting later, maybe like 10? I like to host a watch party, but nobody's available for the first half of the show. I don't know if you're talking about tonight. I did the Blitz with Ghost on Saturday. I was talking about having Ghost on the narrative again soon, but we don't have anything scheduled yet. But we had the Heroldian dialectic tonight. Next week is going to be Chris Paul, and I'll give you guys a little tease of part of what we're going to be talking about next week. I haven't had Chris on in a little while, so that'll be fun. A man not known for strong opinions, so anybody whose feelings were hurt that was in chat tonight, thank goodness Chris Paul will come and rescue us from strong opinions. Maggie Tem, $20, my favorite hosts. Catch you in the morning. Thank you, Maggie. Tom Terrific 54 for the cause, $25. Thank you, Tom. Always appreciate it. We could have used Tom Terrific tonight, the Patriots. It was embarrassing. I actually didn't expect to win this game. I thought Seattle was the better team. I did, however, expect the Patriots to do a little bit better than that. Artsy Joan, $20. John, love ya in Badlands. I love the discussions we have, agree or not. I was trying to say, just because we watched the All-American show doesn't mean we agree with TPUSA methods. Alternatives are good. Yeah, totally agree with that. Totally agree. Keith O'Higgins, every halftime show is boring now. We deserve better entertainment, state of the art, with flying paragliders and dildos. I agree, Keith. Just hurl dildos out through the crowd. Add it up. How many of you at Badlands are actually involved locally, involved in central committees for local offices, etc., local action, national impact? I believe that this stuff is important. Some people don't. I believe writing about this stuff, communicating about this stuff, and arguing about this stuff is important. And I disagree that is the pathway to changing a nation. Others can do it, and I think it's great that they do. I do not believe that we are going to take down the deep state by joining local committees. So, that's just my opinion. But I don't look down on anybody that does do that. Deborah Stars, BB, your honeypot Substack was right on point spiritually today. Thank you. Yeah, there's a couple spiritual kind of allusions in there. So I appreciate that. A lot of great feedback. I really appreciate people reading that stuff because some people like my stream meanderings and some people don't. But often people who do and don't like my writing. So you might like it if you do or don't like me. You'll bicamerally like it, is what I think. The final demand, Alex Jones awkwardly tried to get Liz Crokin to admit she believed he was part of Q. If Conning starts quoting Q retards, we'll believe them. Is Q coming to the MSM soon in the form of a deep state psyop? That's another way of looking at it, right? Is that I believe the Q psyop was a good psyop. I believe that. I don't know that to be true. I believe that. But I believe that they are trying to pivot and rebrand it. I do believe that. And I believe the truth community is helping them do it. That's really what I'm getting at. I don't think most Qfluencers are intentionally trying to do that. I think they are accidentally trying to do that. And I think they're incentivized to do that. It gets them right. You're paid by tweet. I'm not paid by tweets. My account isn't monetized. But people who get millions and millions and millions of impressions on their tweets, they're paid for those tweets, guys. They're paid for the virality. The number of people that read those tweets or see them on their feed, they get paid. So when they're putting out shit about Biden clones from the Epstein drops, they are literally directly inside. You think that they were embarrassed that Jordan called them out? Sure, maybe a little bit. But when they get money deposited into their X account on behalf of the utter bullshit about the drops that they just put out that was bad for the drops, are they disincentivized to do that again or incentivized? The final demand, I just got that one added up. It's God's plan. It's God's timing. I agree with that. But God created us, did he not? With agency and free will. Didn't he want us to be involved? Don't you think we're part of the plan? Sleep state, I thought big dog syndrome meant the owner has a small dick. Small dog syndrome means the opposite, no? That's not how I use small dog syndrome. In the Boston area, anyway, growing up with small dog syndrome as a smaller guy when I was younger. Not that I'm big now, but I'm more normal sized. I was a small little kid. Small dog syndrome is like the dog that's always barking. So, like the one that always gets in fights because they're small and they want to prove that they're tough. That's what I think of with small dog syndrome. When I said that about the truth community and the Q community, what I meant is it's a massive, massive, massive community. But they don't think they are, and they act like nobody pays attention to them. It's like, guys, there's been hit pieces written about you for 10 years. It's a big deal. Like it's a big, yeah, we've all been banned from different social media platforms that just made us bigger. So that's what I meant. Small dog syndrome is like, nobody's paying attention to you. It's like, what do you mean nobody's paying attention to you? There's 4,000 people watching this show right now at 12:35 a.m. Eastern after the Super Bowl. I'm not saying this is a Q show, but it's adjacent, right? And that's like not a high number compared to some other shows. There's a lot of people. Peyton Pooh, this is why Badlandia, do your own thing. 2 people, we are the voice of America. Kick ass, ladies and gents. Germs. Thank you, Peyton Pooh. Final demand, love to see John's interview Trump. Love to see John interview Trump. How can us Badlanders help make that happen? There's more than enough of us to make a request go viral. Can Badlands organize and coordinate something? LFG. Yeah, just retweet him. Retweet the video. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's not me dooming out. I think it's good. Some people took that the wrong way. Like, oh, fame whoring. It's like he's trying to just get in front of Trump so that we don't have to keep being like, what is the comms? I have fun doing that. But, it would be funny to have, wouldn't it be funny to have like a Q person or a Devo person sit down with Trump and be like, hey, shut up, shut your mouth. I love you. Shut your mouth, Trump. What's going on? And do I think he's just going to spill the beans? No, but I think we'd get some good shit out of him. right? Like, I think he'd give some illuminating answers, which is probably why it's not going to happen. But you don't know unless you do it. Yeah, B2B, don't get a big head, BB Fresh and Fit isn't on. There's no hard 5.5s on tonight challenging me for my viewership for these Rumble gooners with low standards. If you're going to goon out, like, go for some 9s, right? Not some hard 6s. Jeez, have some self-respect. And that's, hey, who pushes that shit besides Rumble? I love Rumble, but a little embarrassing, guys. TPUSA pushes all those guys. The guys that are teaching our young conservative men. You too, if you become based and red-pilled enough, can sit at a poker table on a poorly drawn up social media set and whore for likes with a bunch of scantily clad whores. And that is a worthwhile endeavor. Good for gender relations and the nuclear family, all that kind of stuff. I think it's great. I think all the masculinity that TPUSA pushes is incredible. I, too, once endeavored to become a vaguely blackish Middle Eastern-looking man who just slayed pussy all night at the club and then groomed young men into following in my footsteps. That is what I think the future of the MAGA movement should be. Fuck those guys, they're idiots, and those ladies are whores. And I don't think we should be proud to associate that with MAGA. I don't think it should be outlawed or anything like that. I'm still a liberal at heart, right? But it's TPUSA that pushes that shit hardest. So just something to consider. Steph Asia, thanks for another great show, BB. Really appreciate your writing on Substack as well. The Blitz is like a Saturday treat. Thank you, Steph Asia. You teed me up. I actually funneled her that $5 so she would funnel it back. But badlands.substack.com, guys. Free. Again, if you want to support us, you can. You don't have to. Monday through Friday, we've got the Badlands Brief going out. We actually had a rare exclusive from our own Brian Lupo about Fulton County that Newsmax shamelessly ripped from him for a broadcast. Did you guys see that they apologized to him? That was pretty funny. Badlands Brief Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, we have the Badlands Blitz. It is exclusive to the Badlands Substack, but it is free. If you subscribe, you will get it. Ghost and I did. We try to keep it to an hour. We actually did 69 minutes. Nice. Right? Am I right? Fresh and Fit would eat that up. They'd be like, oh my God, he said the thing. So you can get the Blitz too every Saturday if you want. Subscribe over there. We're working hard in 2026 to change the feel and the vibe of the Substack. Ghost, myself, Ash. We're working our asses off on it. The response has been awesome. You get an exclusive show over there every Saturday morning. So just fucking subscribe. I don't know why I got all upset at you guys tonight, but somebody was out of line, okay? You guys know, you know this about me. I invent hypothetical straw men within the audience to attack in order to make my points. And it works. Okay? You know it works. So you shouldn't have been standing there. You shouldn't have been in chat if you weren't prepared for that. And the last little note, again, as I said earlier, next Sunday night on The Narrative, I will be joined by a fellow narrative enthusiast. This show could easily be his. Maybe it will be. Who knows? Chris Paul, philosopher of our age. He's got a new article out on his Substack for his paid subscribers right now. Chicken, Egg, Chicken. I'm your moderator.substack.com. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about some other ideas too. But this would be a good background for you guys to read before Sunday night. And largely, I've not read this yet. It went live today. But largely, it is about, in general, the idea that narratives precede actuals. You guys have heard me talk about that for a long time. Chris talk about that for a long time. Chris always has a very unique and interesting way of not just explaining these concepts, but making them different and new and creating new concepts within them. I love reading that stuff. It levels me up, and I think it levels all of us up. It creates new cognitive ciphers for us to deploy. And yeah, I know a lot of you guys are on board, but the reason I do the narrative is because I don't just think the narrative is the thing that's easiest to engage with. I actually don't think it's easy to engage with. I think it is the most important thing to engage with, because the actual is often out of reach. So that's what I think about that. Check out the Badlands Blitz. Check out the honeypot hoax on burningbright.substack.com. Check out Chris Paul's latest article. Check out Jon Herold, if you've ever heard of him. I tried to give him a boost, you know. I feel like he was like, I could see with his social media posts, he was like, I'm not feeling like Trump doesn't even know who I am. And I'm like, you know what, this kid, he's been working so hard up there. He's in a state that's not even real, right? Dakota, North. Like nobody's ever heard of Dakota, right? For the first thing. And he's trying to talk about how there's two of them. There's two Dakotas, we're now supposed to believe. So he's in one of them, right? He's in the other one. And we got all that going on. So things could be better for Jon, is what I'm saying. And being a Dakotan is just the least of his worries. Getting ignored by Trump is perhaps one of the greatest affronts to his life that there's been. And I thought, if I can give this little guy, I consider him like a son, you know, like I sort of taught him everything he is. Like, it's just, if I can raise him up sometimes and expose him to an audience here at Badlands Media, I thought I would try to do that. And Donnie, I know you watch often. I know you don't comment, you know, you use a few socks every now and again, but I get odds. I wouldn't give him the interview. I think it'd kind of be a little awkward, but throw him a bone. And I think, you know, consider it like you're doing me and the narrative chat a solid of just kind of getting him to shut up about it. And then we get some viral clips out of it. And, you know, you'd probably be mean to him. And so whatever it is, I just wanted to, like a make-a-wish sort of thing before I kill him. Before he passes beyond this realm through circumstances I have not intricately planned out. But before that happens, I feel like that would really just make his day. So that's my request to you, Don, and to you, chat, to make that happen. And if I played any small role in that, then that's good. And Keith O'Higgins says, the most important decode ever was, be sure to drink your Ovaltine. I actually like chocolate Ovaltine. I once tried to drink regular Ovaltine at my grandmother's house. She was watching me after school one day, and it looked like chocolate milk. And I was like, this looks like chocolate milk. So I'm going to put some of the powder in some milk, and I'm going to have a great day after school. And it tasted like Ovaltine. And I was like, what is this? It tastes like something that is a little bit like chocolate milk. But if they drew the joy out of it and made it for somebody who is old, who no longer remembers the taste of chocolate milk, but remembers the idea of it and would like to have some, but would like die or something if they had actual chocolate milk. That's what I think Ovaltine is. It's a psyop, in other words, a psyact, you might even say. And it scarred me for life. It took me a long time to trust Ovaltine again. And then I discovered that their chocolate Ovaltine mix is actually really great. I have some actually at the house. Maybe I'll have some. Anyway, what a horrible filibuster this turned into. Patriots lost. They weren't in control. Otherwise, everything's pretty good. All right, guys. As I always say, the war is a story. The story is a war. Act accordingly. Come back here next Sunday night for Chris Paul. Outro with the intro. Peace.
We were sleeping. I've been sleeping. I've been turning away from a truth I wanted not to face. There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us. We let it grow, and now it's here.
How many men have you killed, my lord?
I don't know.
50? 100? Countless.
Countless has a nice ring to it.
And how many lives have you saved?
500,000. Population of King's Landing. Tell me if your precious Randy commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, children burned alive, would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
Our time has come. We prepared. We grew stronger. While you rested in your cradle of power, you were trusted to lead the Republic. But you were deceived. You assumed no force could challenge you. And now, finally, we have returned.
The visions are clear now. I see possible futures all at once. Our enemies are all around us. And in so many futures they prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
It's not a prophecy. It's a story that you keep telling, but it's not their story, it's yours. They deserve to be led by one of their own. What your people did to this world is heartbreaking.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope! We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. But they are the gatekeepers. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them.
I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such time, but that is not for them to decide. All we will have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us.
Forgive me. I did not see. I have failed you all. You fooled me. Jon, I do not know what strength is in my blood. But I swear to you, I will not let the White City fall. Our people fail. Our people. Our people.
I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And now it begins.
No. Now it ends.